This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto and his twin sister disappeared from Orphanage. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Not wasting no time, let's start the story.
As though it were alive, the snow danced between the forests and swirled everywhere. It caused more white crystals to fall to the ground and turned the trees to ice. The winter sun would shine through the ice that hung from various places, creating a lovely illusion. In the lovely, enchanted woods, there was utter silence. But soon the air was filled with two high-pitched cries. Birds fluttered rapidly, startled by the unfamiliar sound that they hardly ever heard at home. The scene abruptly changed to show two infants in a tiny circle formed by melted snow in a clearing. They were left behind because no one was available to assist the pathetic animals. One of the aforementioned humans was a girl, and the other was a boy. The baby girl had curly short hair that was bright red with gold and darker red streaks. She had pale skin, and although her eyes were closed at the moment, they would open to reveal the most exquisite shade of green you had ever seen. The boy, however, had short, blonde hair that was spiked and streaked with dark red. After opening his eyes, he felt and saw something close by, which caused him to relax. He gave a joyful gurgle in response to whatever it was. The fluffy creature before him made his own beautiful sapphire blue eyes shine with joy. Looking directly into the young human's eyes, a white she-wolf found something to like. The young girl was approached by another wolf, a tawny she-wolf, who gently lifted her by the blanket she was wrapped in. The two wolves carried their load deeper into the woods, into the surrounding darkness, after the white wolf grabbed the boy by his blanket. Back in a nearby village, Konohagakure's leader was incensed. He had just learned that the orphanage in the village had been set on fire. His roar caused the village to tremble. "Where are they? Kami, help me. If no one finds those two babies, I will burn this god." Forsaken village down along with every single idiot in IT, he said. Because they all understood why the Hokage was so angry, the entire village was terrified for their lives. On October 10th of this year, a huge monster attacked. It was a great fox demon known as Kyuubi no Kitsune. The town was devastated, and many people had perished. The recently dead fourth Hokage took a newborn and sealed the great demon into the infant in a last-ditch effort to save his house. Few people are aware that the infant was actually Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, his own son. But that night, he wasn't the only baby born. Yasuragi Uzumaki Namikaze, Naruto's sister, was born. But the desperate Hokage took his only son because Naruto was older. He was no idiot, but he had hoped his son would be hailed as a hero in the village. However, because Yasuragi was his twin, they also saw her as a demon, in addition to Naruto. Her two children were left all alone and without protection in the world after their mother vanished. The old Hokage had been furious because he believed he knew Kushina. But now he realized how badly he had assessed her character. The last few months had been agony. In addition to continuing his duties and regaining his title as third Hokage, Sarutobi also had to look after and watch over the twins. He had been correct to feel that he couldn't trust anyone in the village. Numerous assassins had attempted to murder the helpless infants in public while onlookers cheered, despite the peril of confronting the Hokage. Even with the Hokage in the vicinity, people soon discovered that their leader was siding with the demons, and they attempted to kill off the babes in secret. Sarutobi anticipated this and halted those attacks as well. But he believed he could rely on the orphanage. Surely the twins would be treated well by an elderly couple who cared for orphans. He had clearly miscalculated character once more. Before he could take action after witnessing their treatment of them, someone set fire to the orphanage in an effort to murder the unfortunate animals. The following day, when he finally learned, his investigative team found that the couple had been the ones who started the fire, blaming the infants and claiming that the twin brats had attempted to murder them. With his heart tight with guilt and shame, he said, "That's it. No more. Now that the twins were dead, it was his fault." Hokage Sama, one of his most devoted shinobi, attempted to say, but nothing emerged. The day was too depressing to try to lift someone's spirits. "I tried, and I failed. It's my fault because I was foolish and believed that the villagers of this town had the will of fire in them, and that they were pure." However, they couldn't see past the fact that Kyuubi was sealed inside the boy to protect this village. He was a hero, and she was his sister. His defenseless little sister. They were just babies, human and pure. "No more, Kakashi. I'm done being nice. They wanted a demon, now they have one." He spoke through a speaker in the village network. His speech had been heard by all, and now there was a mixture of shame and fear. Who were they to turn two helpless infants into demons? They now understood that they were the monsters, not the babies. It was too late now. "I failed to protect the fourth Hokage's children. The village would encounter a new kind of leadership, One that was tough and cruel. After that final, startling statement, Sarutobi was not going to be the benevolent professor that everyone believed him to be after the incident. No, he now ruthlessly punished them. It was all due to a straightforward miscommunication. Two small infants were surrounded by a large pack of wolves. The babies we saw earlier were the same ones. The wolves were all yapping, growling, and chatting among themselves. When the white she-wolf finally appeared, everyone fell silent as she yelled at the others. This female was clearly the dominant dog. We will translate the wolf language so you can hear what they are saying because we are unable to understand it. Quiet. It is not so difficult a concept to understand. I am taking these pups into my care, nevertheless they are human and one smells like Gakido. He is our great cousin, so it is only natural to help his host, and his host's sister. The silver wolf went on to explain. A male black and brown wolf growled, Muzai, this is a dangerous task. If the humans hear that 2 human pups are seen with our pack, they'll know. Muzai retaliated. Fool, they abandoned them. Because of the young lad having Gakido sealed inside him, and the lass is his twin. Because of their relation to each other, they view her as much as a demon as he. This time, they responded with growls. A few of them were overheard uttering the following. Foolish ninja. They throw one of their own defenseless in a winter like this? I say we go and teach Em a lesson. Surely someone had to have cared for these pups? What about them? She yelled the final line, to howls in response. Silence. Yes, someone had cared for these pups, but not good enough. Tate and I were called by a human, and asked us to look after them. After much thought, we agreed. And wolves to not go back on their words. She retaliated by howling back, longer, louder, and more passionate than the others. They continued to do so until they eventually stopped. Muzai turned to face Blaise, the person who had spoken. But how will we care for them? Surely you don't think you can raise them by yourself with the help of a ninja, a human? Muzai asked. I can. And I will. If it comes to help, I will require the service of the one who called me. I will ask them to find a human female to help us. I doubt it will come to that, however. She took a deep breath and blinked. All arguments finally came to an end when the pack leader said, Enough of this. My mind is made up and none of you will change it. I am the pack leader. My word is law. They were certain that their leader's choice was the right one. She had guided them through difficult times and was wise. There was a loud cheer, and Muzai grinned, or what wolves thought was a smile, as she gazed at her new human pups. Our human contact had told us their human names were Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the lad, and Yasuragi Uzumaki Namikaze, his young sister. However, their wolf clan names will be Sandalio and Ulrika of the Hell Wolf tribe. Anyone who witnessed this scene would have assumed she was going to devour the infants since humans would interpret it as a display of teeth. However, the wolves saw it as a sign of maternal affection. The clan found it difficult to raise Ulrika and Sandalio. It was simpler at first since they could consume the wolf milk and the wolves would keep the infants warm by cuddling with them. Naturally, as they grew older, everything became more difficult. Soon, they needed food instead of milk. They were also getting bigger, so it would take more wolves to keep them warm in the winter. In other months, it was not an issue because the temperature at night would fluctuate. But the more concerning problem was food. For obvious reasons, they couldn't simply survive on plants, and they couldn't feed a human infant raw meat. Muzai had to summon her humans soon after. Muzai proceeded to a tiny clearing with a waterfall cascading into a crystal pond. She touched her nose in the water while gazing into it. She closed her eyes and focused. A shadowy figure soon turned to face her. A male voice joked, Hello again, Muzai. Having trouble, I presume? Muzai snarled. Obviously, or I would not have called you. It's about food. They're starting to grow too old for just milk. They need human food, which is something we don't exactly have in full supply. She could hear a sigh. The wolf nodded in relief, saying, Yeah, I figured this would happen. Well, let's see. I'll send some of my people down to help you out, okay? Thank you. No problem. It should be me thanking you, after all. Now, I have to go. I have to schedule another meeting, which I know the whole organization hates. Hee hee. I love to make their lives miserable. As the image vanished, the she-wolf's only words were, You're a weird human. She went to call her own clan meeting, relieved that the matter had been resolved. Perhaps there was less of a difference between animals and humans after all. The idea made her laugh, and she walked out of the clearing. A blond man with a cigarette in his mouth said, So, 4 people need to go care for 2 brats? I'm out. There were a few giggles and a number of sighs. A redhead with hair that fell in spikes down his back smiled and said, I'll go. I'm bored as hell anyway. I'd be fun teaching pyromania to the 2. His emerald eyes sparkled. Standing in front of the crowd, the leader declared, "One down, 3 more spots to fill." "Hey, I'll go!" exclaimed a girl with blonde hair, who was bouncing around. Her shorts were short and her shirt was a basic bathing top, so she was hardly dressed. Under her shorts, she seemed to be wearing a matching bottom piece. Someone sighed, and others concurred, "Great, we have a pyromaniac and a hyperactive girl so far to help raise and teach the poor kids. Well, if someone responsible wants to help as well, we have 2 more spots to fill." The leader was interrupted at the end by the quick and silent reply, "I'll go." A man with long, lovely black hair, pale, wearing a ragged red cape. It had the appearance of a deliberately messed up hairstyle, though it did stick up in some places as well. His black eyes met the leader's, who gave a nod. "Who else? I'll go as well," a woman's voice said. It came from a tanned woman with what appeared to be rabbit ears protruding from the top of her head and who was barely clothed. Her long white hair was pulled up in a high ponytail, and the clothes she wore essentially served as armor. All emotions were hidden by her golden eyes as she looked back. "All right, that's it. Axel, Riku, Vincent, and Fran. You 4 are now the twins' caretakers, teachers, and human family. Don't worry for those of you who wanted to go. You'll all end up meeting them, but that's for another time. For now, you 4 get your things ready. You leave tomorrow." The 4 nodded and left. However, the leader kept the others to discuss additional topics. As Tate watched her best friend emerge from the trees, she asked, "So, what did he say?" The twins were being watched by some wolves so Tate and Muzai could relax, and the air was warm. Her eyes softened at the names of the twins. "He's sending some humans to help with the care and teachings of Sandalio and Ulrika." The leader already had a particular place in his heart for them. Tate gave her friend a wolf grin, and Muzai returned the smile. "That's a relief. With their help we can get another source of warmth for them during the winter and they can go into town for whatever humans need." The white wolf turned back to smile and said, "Okay, now that that's all done, what do you say of us going hunting? I heard there a couple of juicy-looking deer passed by earlier." "Hell yeah," she exclaimed, looking years younger as she sped into the woods with her lifelong friend. Nobody dared to discuss the incident that haunted thousands of people in the nearby town of Konoha. The village had been severely targeted by Sarutobi. He located, questioned, and killed everyone found to have harmed or harassed Naruto. Not many were found to be innocent. Kakashi, a number of Anbu and other ninja, Uruka Amino, the Inuzukas, some Hyuga and Uchiha members, and Aburame members were among the innocent. Yamanakas, Naras, Sarutobis, Akamichis, and a few bystanders. Sarutobi spared many because, of course, he couldn't kill the entire village. Those who survived quickly turned over a new leaf. They promised not to treat the 2 babies horribly if they had somehow survived, been saved by someone, and then simply been taken away. Konoha was subjected to numerous new laws by Sarutobi. He ignored what the council had to say. Despite their desire to believe they had control over the Hokage, they had no such authority. That Danzo in particular. Danzo, the Cownicle vs Hokage trial was one of the more contentious ones. The evidence was stacked against them, and many members had been found guilty. When Danzo was accused, he blatantly acknowledged it. When Sarutobi gave the order to kill him, Root Anbu showed up, and they vanished with Danzo. Every corner of Konoha, every hidden hiding place, and the former headquarters of Root were all searched and destroyed. The door was permanently locked. Naturally, a few months have passed since then. Although things somewhat calmed down, the new laws made things more difficult. Everywhere, Anbu could be seen observing everyone. Privacy was scarce. There was a curfew, and those who broke the rules faced a month in jail. Naturally, there had initially been some rebels, but they quickly realized their mistake. Naturally, the idea that Konoha were softies was no longer valid for those from other villages. Without the council's help, ninja training got better and the tests got more difficult. Although cruel, this helped the village by weeding out the weaker ninjas. Stronger ninjas would now be produced since weak ninjas would no longer be trained. The so-called ninja rules were also abolished by him. Although it was practical to kill your target, who might very well be innocent, without letting your emotions control you, it also proved to drive people insane. In order to teach the emotionless ninja emotions, Sarutobi implemented a program with the assistance of his more devoted followers. Although they included others, the patients were primarily Root members who desired assistance. Hyugas and Uchihas were sent here to learn how to be humble. That's a different matter. Fugaku and Hiyashi discovered that they could disarm their own councils after the council was out of the way. The two were able to govern their clans with greater freedom since the Hyuga Council and the Uchiha Council had disbanded. They urged their clans to unite and to shed their haughtiness. These elements contributed to Konoha's improvement. These modifications were what gave Sarutobi hope once more. He purified the village, ridding it of all immorality. Now he hoped it would flourish into the village his teachers had once imagined. Perhaps now his 2 students would return to assist. Sarutobi sighed as he moved away from the window overlooking the village's east side. Given that his students' grandchildren were believed to be dead, he had doubts that they would return. Without complaining, he sat at his desk and went through the papers. He would then hang out with his own family. He grinned softly, which was unusual outside of family situations. His second son recently married a nice and attractive woman. Asuma, his first son, was still unmarried, of course, but his gaze shifted to the paper he was now studying. It seems that Kurenai Yuhi has been promoted to Junin. He pondered. Asuma might not be unmarried for long. If he were to teach Kurenai the ropes, that is. The elderly man grinned and gave his approval by signing the document. In the near future, he could envision numerous miniature Sarutobis scuttling through Konoha. One day, perhaps, one might even succeed him as Hokage. Sarutobi spent the remainder of the day in a positive frame of mind because of that thought. Riku stretched with her arms up above her head, thinking, "Oh wow, this is pretty deep in the forests, eh?" Her energetic hyperness caused her blonde hair to sway. Vincent's voice was calm and serious as he said, "If we're going to live here for the next few years, we're probably going to have to build some kind of a shelter." His dark eyes looked around him, looking for foes who might be too stupid to attack them. The group's redhead, Axel, sighed, snapping his fingers and producing a tiny flame each time. "Man, that's gonna take work, damn it." Fran watched the pyro with anxiety and scowled, saying, "Stop that. You'll burn the forest down." Being a Vieira, she was more of an earthy person, and because the forest had been there to protect her growing up, she was afraid of fire. Even though Axel frowned, he stopped. Fran nodded and sighed, "I'll stop, for now. I'm still teaching them how to summon fire. It will be a long few years." The arrival of the humans made things easier. The pups were moved in with them after they constructed a modest shelter that matched the woods. In order for Muzai to be near her pups, the wolf tribe also drew nearer to them. After all, they were still her pups despite the assistance of humans. On the day they arrived, she informed them as much. Thus, with their assistance, the twins developed in a remarkable and potent way. They had so much contact with the demonic wolves that Ulrika became half demon as a result of some of the demonic energy rubbing off on her. But Naruto remained human, regardless of whether that was due to the seal or some other force. When they reached a certain age, Axel, Riku, Fran, and Vincent began to instruct them. As they gained strength, it quickly became clear who should instruct whom. Ulrika was taught by Axel and Riku because she was more proficient in closed range combat. As a result, she became accustomed to both of their personalities. Sandalio, however, had a personality that combined aspects of Vincent and Fran. It was striking how different the two appeared and behaved, but you could also see how similar they were. Sometimes Sandalio would become hyperactive for a day, and Ulrika would shut down her emotions entirely. It astounded everyone once more. Finally, the two would either speak simultaneously or complete each other's sentences. It irritated a lot of people, so the two quickly learned to moderate that behavior. They continued to do it, but not frequently. The wolves also taught the twins. Because Ulrika was half demon, she could be either a wolf, a human, or both. Therefore, she was taught how to shape-shift. However, full demons hardly ever changed from their original forms or were unable to do so. It was challenging, but it was possible. Although it was heavily humanized, Sandalio was taught how to fight like a wolf. In order to better control his abilities, he was also taught how to manipulate Kyuubi's chakra, or energy. As they grew, they met others who came to see them. Many people who met them fell in love with them right away, and they prospered. They had a good heart and would even give hugs to the cruelest person. Ulrika would, of course, but Sandalio would be content to merely smile or nod at them. Sandalio's smile made everyone feel as though an angel himself was adorning them. His smiles conveyed the love and importance he had for his large family. Even though it could be annoying, Ulrika's personality would swarm the coldest heart because she wore her heart on her sleeve. When she first met Sephiroth, a rather heartless man, many people laughed. Now it was Sephiroth's turn to visit the settlement and check on the children. As soon as he arrived, a small person blasted him and knocked him down. It all started with the words, "Zemnos, you're here, ohmy goshimisidi ou. I can't wait to show you. Wait, you're not Zemnos." Sephiroth was now unduly protective of his younger brother and sister. The extent to which the two could transform a person was astounding. The twins were still training hard 11 years after the night the two wolves discovered the crying infant. At the moment, Ulrika was attempting to use her fire powers to make a bomb, but all she consistently received was a spark. She gave a frustrated growl. Sandalio was amusedly observing her and said, "This is annoying, can't we just go get salt ice cream or something?" He leaned on a nearby tree, his arms crossed, his blue eyes glittering. He smirked as she glared at his figure and said, "Nope. Axel told me to make sure you didn't get any ice cream until you created a fire bomb. It couldn't be that hard. Bastard." She ignored him and focused, saying, "You know you just insulted yourself with that statement." It was simple to discuss, but one of the hardest things she had to do with her fire was to actually make a firebomb. The part where she couldn't focus on making it blow up was more difficult than the shape itself. As he reminded her to focus, she said, "You know, you suck as a teacher." As the 11-year-old told his twin, "And you're not concentrating." A voice said, "Children, do we really need to fight?" Ulrika pouted. Her twin sputtered angrily at the name. "Uncle Vincent. Sandy's being mean." Vincent rolled his eyes, but the two children could tell he was amused. "I told you not to call me that." She stuck her tongue out and said, "You're just mad because you can't come up with something horrible from my name." She then ignored her brother and uncle and focused on her work once more. She can actually make a variety of weapons out of fire, but this bomb kept bugging her. She gritted her teeth and pumped a little more air into the bomb than she had previously, and suddenly she realized she had made it. She threw it into the air, yelling in surprise, and a tiny explosion occurred 5 seconds later. A light rain of ash fell, covering the three of them. One male was squealing and jumping up and down, while the other two were irritated by the mess. She clutched her sides and laughed at her brother's and uncle's looks. "I did it! I did it! I did it!" she exclaimed. "You two look so ridiculous. You should look in a mirror." "Ha ha." But when she noticed her brother was snarling angrily at her, she thought it would be wise to flee. "Ah, Mom! Mom!" she exclaimed as she immediately ran to the other's meadow. Riku poked him with a stick. Fran shook her head slightly at their antics, and she saw Axel lying down, enjoying the sun. But when they heard Ulrika laughing and shouting for Muzai as she crashed through the forest, Axel leapt to his feet and yelled as soon as the stick stabbed him in the sides. Riku leapt back and apologized profusely, but Ulrika, who was running behind the white lead wolf who was amusedly observing the entire situation, knocked her down. "Mom! He's trying to kill me," Ulrika exclaimed, her eyes wide. With a sudden determination to capture his sister, Sandalio also dashed through the clearing. Now, I'm sure it can't be that bad. Although, what's all over you two?" She finally was able to make a bomb. Axel and Riku caught Sandalio off guard. They all exclaimed, "Really, that's great," and Riku went on. "Now we can show you the second part." He growled, and Ulrika winced. And when she threw the bomb in the air to make it explode, the aftermath was that we all got covered in ash, he said. "I said sorry." "No you didn't." "All right then, I'm sorry." "That doesn't make a difference." She stuck her tongue in the air and said, "It should." Muzai sighed and pretended to be irritated. The entire tribe laughed as they observed the scene. "Okay, pups. Sandalio," she apologized. "You know as well as I she didn't mean it, and that she had to throw it in the air unless you guys were put in danger. Ulrika, you should have warned your brother before throwing it though so he could have gotten out of the way." Ulrika grinned as Vincent, who was just as filthy as the other two, showed up. They weren't the only ones to get covered in ash. Many people started laughing when Vincent said, "Don't worry, Vinny, I won't tell anyone about you getting gray hair." Vincent then looked at his niece or daughter. Ulrika fell silent when he said, "If you do, I'll tell people about the ramen incident." Many people were curious about what had happened. Sandalio grinned as he recalled Ulrika's first ramen experience. After that, she never ate it again. Axel muttered, "Now I'm curious," but dismissed it as he stood up. All right, kiddies, it's time to make up now." Vincent and Sandalio gave him a glare, while others laughed. He laughed and put his hand behind his head, feeling uneasy from the glares. She hurried past him in the direction of the east, saying, "Ha ha, so, Ulrika. About the salt ice cream I promised." In a hurry, he followed his younger sister and said, Okay then. We'll be back in a bit. Don't wait up for us." Riku pulled a face, and Sandalio grinned at her. "I will never get those two's addiction to that stuff." Fran was grinning as well as shaking her head. She merely stated, "Humans are a race I shall understand." Muzai concurred, and the three nearby humans laughed at her remark. As the younger described the faces of Vincent and Sandalio, Ulrika and Axel were laughing. Axel grabbed his sides in laughter as she continued. Vincent was like this, pulling her face into a humorous expression. And Sandalio was like, she said. The two kept talking and laughing as they made their way to Tanzaku town, which was the closest town. No kiddin', eh? Wish I could have been there to see it, haha, they said. Axel grinned as the young girl abruptly complained, man, can't you guys give us a break with all this training? She squealed as he teased, hey, we would but we got a surprise for you that's coming up real soon. As she pleaded, really, what is it? Ooh, can't you tell me? Axel rolled his eyes. He waved a hand to tell her to calm down. Riku, you, Sora, and Yuffie just can't wait for the surprise. Now that I think about it, Vaughn and Jaden are like that too. Geez. Then she used that technique. No one knows who taught it to her, but many swore Roxas did since she started doing it after they met and because Roxas can do it the best, and begged, okay, fine. But can you tell me what it is? I promise to act surprised when you show it to us. When he heard whimpering, the redhead looked down and cursed his luck after flinching and scanning his surroundings. The dreaded look of a puppy dog. Those who were vulnerable to its effects were cursed. One of them was Axel. He rubbed his hand behind his head, as he always does when he's anxious, sheepish, or anything else of the sort, and complained, all right. You're gonna get me in trouble for this. We'll remember when we told you and Sandalio that you guys were born in Konoha. But then villagers left you in the middle of the woods one winter night to die, and then Muzai and Tate found you too because of our leader asking them to? Ulrika looked perplexed. Then, as she considered a potential direction for this, her eyes grew wide. Her eyes widened, and Axel nodded. They arrived at the cafe, ice cream shop and entered. The woman behind the counter was not surprised when they approached and placed their order for sea salt ice cream. Both were frequent and well-liked customers. They sat across from one another and continued to whisper as they carried their ice cream to a booth. Boss contacted the old man in Konoha, and told him you two were alive. He told him that he wanted you two to learn where you guys came from. It's up to you two though, if you want to be ninja. Technically, even though you came from Konoha, Sarutobi can't force you to serve the village since you were civilians and you were technically kicked out. He grinned at the last two phrases and took a bite of his ice cream. After that, the two were silent for a while. They ate their ice cream without saying a word. Ulrika finally raised her voice. She asked carefully, won't they try to hurt us again? Holding the now clean stick in his hand, Axel frowned. Seeing Ulrika's expression at that, he quickly added, but they'll return. It's not like they're going away. He mentally slapped himself as she grew even more depressed. Not if I or any of the others have to say something about it. You'll be escorted by yours truly, of course. The other three will have to go somewhere for a bit. Look, they're going away for a week, no more, no less. Just a week. Since we're already in fire country, boss ordered us to go check up on one of the power cores in the land. Of course, since we only need two to go, Fran and Vincent volunteered since they don't trust Riku to do it. And they don't trust Riku with me alone since I can't really control her hyperness. And then of course, Riku said she had to go see a relative of hers anyway and would go with them. He grinned as she got better. Her best friend smiled back at her as she said, oh I see, so, Sandalio's stuck with us, huh? He answered, yep. Then he became grave. Remember, not a word. Muzai will tell you later today. So act surprised. Got it memorized? As he became perplexed, she smiled and said, yep, do you? What the hell are you talking about? Don't you dare take my catchphrase. What? But it's so cool, no, get your own. Do you want me to go back to believe it? Blackmail is a crime? I know. Thank Vincent and Fran for teaching it to me. So, no, get it memorized. You're not taking my catchphrase? While Axel muttered to herself about obnoxious 11-year-olds and irresponsible adults, Ulrika pouted the entire way home. When they stepped into the clearing, the two were quite a sight. Ulrika ended up pouting and Axel muttering to himself as they walked back to the clearing after their argument was resolved. But when the little girl saw Muzai, she smiled. At the moment, she was meeting with a number of her supporters to discuss when the three humans would travel to Konoha. While Tate and Blaise, one, argued that it was best for them to leave as soon as possible, she was considering the months that lay ahead. However, two people soon interrupted them. The boy growled at the name. Hey, Mom. Is it true that Axel, Sandy, and I am going towards Konoha? Axel yelled in response to multiple glares directed at him. Sandalio raised his eyebrows in inquiry. Axel grinned as Vincent said in a menacing tone, Axel, where did she hear this bit of news? Like Muzai and the other wolves. He was practicing arm.to.arm combat with Riku when they were interrupted. At the moment, Vincent was furious that the surprise had been spoiled. He said, "Well, she conned me into it." Vincent arched his brows in inquiry. "She conned you into it? How?" "She used the face." "Oh," he responded. He was unable to dispute that. Ulrika began using the face after Roxas used it on Axel once, and she witnessed how easily Axel gave in. Too, Ulrika was a close second, but Roxas was still the best at it. Few people were able to withstand the two. Additionally, Axel was among the face's most susceptible targets. It was undoubtedly a very potent weapon that needed to be handled with caution. Neither Ulrika nor Roxas, of course, used it with care. And it was beginning to spread. He was in serious trouble, and Axel shuddered. Particularly now that more people were wearing that face. One day, Demyx used it to attack him, followed by Namine. He also couldn't forget Yuna, Riku, Penelo, and a ton of other people. Axel turned his head away from the laughter in everyone's eyes and sighed, "I hate that face." Muzai wasn't laughing, though. Yes, she was amused, but she was still angry. Ulrika smiled, but it was tempered when she saw her mother's face. "Dear Ulrika, Sandalio. Yes. It is all true." She added inaudibly, "Too soon. You'll both be leaving with Axel sometime soon." This did little to calm the White Wolf down. "Oh mother, don't worry about us. We'll have Axel to look after us," it said. Vincent and Axel sulked as they said, "I don't that's going to comfort her, Ulrika." He also had a face that worked wonders. Riku laughed, but Vincent rolled his eyes. Ulrika asked, "Hey, where's Aunt Fran?" Since she hadn't seen her favorite aunt, or at least one of her favorite aunts. She stood beneath her favorite tree, where she watched for danger and looked out over the tribe, but the Vieira was not there. Riku exclaimed, "She had to go report to Boss Man." Vincent rolled his eyes. He asked angrily, "How the hell are you so hyper all the time?" And Riku let out a loud sigh. Amused, Muzai and the others observed the exchange. Vincent and Riku were constantly at odds. But if Yuffie was here too, it was pretty much worse. Vincent was always able to hide from the two rambunctious teenagers if they were present at the same time. Vincent became impatient with the two at times when they caught the poor vampire 3 and performed a stunt. The blonde crossed her arms over her chest and shot back, "How the hell are you so grumpy all the time?" "Because you're annoying." With a smile, Axel put his arms around Riku's shoulders and said, "I'm not bothersome. You simply don't know how to enjoy yourself." He continued, "Now, that's just not nice. Vinny is just too old to remember the good, OL times." Which caused Riku to start laughing uncontrollably. Vinny glared at the redhead, attempting to set him on fire. Naturally, the pyro would not likely be destroyed by flames. Muzai then returned the conversation to the twins' return to Konoha, saying, "All right. Enough of this. Axel, Vincent's not old. I agree with Tate and Blaise. They should just get the whole thing over with and just go. Besides, it would be easier if we did it this way so they won't get bored waiting around for us to get back from our own trip." Fran abruptly said as she entered the clearing. She was a little let down that she didn't make anyone jump. Ulrika always wondered why Sandalio asked, "Why couldn't we just go with you?" Ulrika nodded as Vincent stated calmly, "You can't go because you're not old enough. Also, it's dangerous where we're going. We're going to a part where civilization hasn't touched and demons roam freely unknown to humans." Ulrika paused, then smirked at Vincent, who suddenly realized how much she and Axel resembled each other. "Okay, uncle. But you know, Konoha is going to be in trouble with two pyros and someone who can't really control them, right?" Fran sighed at her niece and simply shook her head, her hair swaying. They were all impossible, even Vincent, who behaved like a child. A stoic child, but still a child. But she loved them all, she thought with a small smile and a secret. "I give up." Vincent shook his head and moaned, "I really, truly give up." Many people laughed at this response, while Riku, Ulrika, and Axel all burst out laughing. To get back on track, I finally realized that it would probably be best for all three of you to depart for Konoha as soon as possible. Sarutobi is most eager to meet you after learning about your survival and pups. But you won't travel alone. Axel will go with you to make sure nothing goes wrong, as you are already aware. I give you my permission to stay, if you want to. Muzai took a deep breath, and many could see that she was upset about having to let her kids go. Now, you will be given the choice whether to remain there and stay as ninja, with certain freedoms of course, or to come back here. Whatever decision you make, I will be proud of you. After all, it appears that Konoha has changed based on all of the rumors we hear. Sarutobi will explain all the advantages of being a ninja to you when you meet with him, and you will also be granted certain privileges. Mom, When would we depart? Sandalio inquired, and Muzai turned to face Fran and Vincent. Riku sulked that she was being disregarded, but she was ignored again, and she pouted while letting her head and arms hang down. How about me? The blonde woman inquired. The day after tomorrow, we depart. Muzai nodded, her head lowered as she sighed, so it would probably be wise if they left the same day so we can travel together for a time before we split off. Of course, I suppose it's only natural that a mother's pups have to leave the tribe soon to evolve into stronger beings, she said, looking up at her pups, observing that Sandalio was defending his uncle, while Ulrika, Riku, and Axel were teasing Vincent. Fran occasionally added her thoughts on either side. You're not allowed to discuss that moment with anyone, Sandalio exclaimed, and Ulrika grinned. She placed her hands on her hips and then, with her eyes narrowed, waved her right one while speaking in a condescending manner. Yes, I did say that, but I'm Sandy, your sister. She laughed, covering her mouth, and everyone except Ulrika shuddered. I'm not going to stop humiliating you because of that fact, she said. Axel shivered as he recalled how she had molested him. She was his friend, of course, but to be honest, she scared the living daylights out of him, especially when she was upset. It seemed like she was having a Lerxine moment. All Sandalio said was, "Don't ever do that again." His twin simply smirked and shook her head, raising her arms in frustration. The two glared at the adults, who laughed at them. Whatever you say, bro. She continued to smirk, while he crossed his arms and glared. Kids get no respect, I'm telling y'all. The young girl sighed, throwing up her hands and shaking her head once more. What is a world where kids get no respect? Well, Sandalio only said, I'm going to go train, and Ulrika gave a triumphant fist pump. I triumph. Right in your face. The lone white female wolf sighed at her pups' antics, but even though they were growing and would soon be leaving their mother, her pups would always be her pups. She performed a victory dance that caused many to perspire. She smirked and looked as Ulrika was talking to Riku and Sandalio was leaving the clearing, thinking, it would only be a few days and her pups would leave, but no matter where they went, they would be in my heart forever. She closed her eyes and left the clearing to reflect. In her heart, the twins were her own puppies, and Muzai loved them as much as if they were her own. She raised them and taught them everything she knew how to teach them, and she was certain that they would grow up to be good people with a place to go if they ever needed it. Muzai was no fool, though, because she knew the decision the twins would make. Ulrika and Sandalio, after all, wanted to learn as much as they could in order to be the best, and Konoha gave them new methods and new ideas, and he also gave them a place where they could find people their own age. Sure, they had Riku, Vincent, and everyone else, but he continued with Zabuza, and Blair was their age as well, but she never seemed to visit because she was always grounded. Of course, there was Macaw, Soul, Death the Kid, Black Star, Tsubaki, Liz, and Patty, but they all had death-related tasks to complete, and Toshiro worked in the whole death business, so he was hardly ever able to visit, but they all seemed to make the most of their time there. She had her tribe, but she grew accustomed to human presence, and without them she felt abandoned. Muzai sighed. Of course, if her pups agreed to be ninja, which was very likely, then she would hardly see them at all because they would be so busy, and without them, all the humans would have no reason to visit. Is there a problem? The white wolf let out a whimper and told the Vieira all her worries. Even if they would agree, they can always visit whenever they wanted to, in their spare time, she said, smiling at her friend Fran, who she could easily talk to. They were now quite far from the camp, but she and Fran would still be in reach in case they sensed trouble. Even though people are weird, the village wouldn't use missions to suffocate them. We will also always be your human family and friends. Even if this place turned out to be dull, we would still come see you. Muzai gave a playful growl. Boring? That would never be here. I promise. Have you forgotten all of our mishaps? It will never get dull, I promise, whether it's bandits stumbling into our territory, the twins being abducted, or wolves going crazy and attempting to take over the pack. The gods do love to play with our fragile lives, I do admit, Fran said, glancing up at the gradually declining sky, which was a sign that a storm was on its way. Can you sense it? Is that another factor contributing to the worries that consume your mind? Muzai nodded while gazing up at the sky as well. She responded, there is trouble approaching us, and her friend nodded. There will soon be chaos and death as another war breaks out. All I can hope for is that we can get everyone together in time. When this is over, the afterlife will be brimming with new souls. If this is ever going to end, this is the culmination of everything that came before it. It's just another few years before it all finally starts. The end of the world. Sandalio and Ulrika saw the sudden sadness that overcame their mother, so they made sure to spend their final days at the gathering with her. Rather than training, They all took a break and played games with their mother, just like they used to do when they were younger. This made Muzai feel a little better, and when the time came for the group of humans to depart, she was happy because she needed to stop smothering her pups, who were growing up, and she knew they would be okay where they were going. In addition, despite all the jokes, Axel would protect them with his life because he was strong, and she doubted her pups wouldn't be harmed. She saw the humans go, their backs the last thing she saw, and her eyes widened in surprise when her twins turned to wave and smile. Well, Sandalio grinned at her, and Ulrika grinned and gave a small salute. Her pups would be fine, I agree. Are we already there? No, now? No, he raised an eyebrow, and a bush on the side caught fire. How about right now? He turned his head because he suddenly thought the scenery was interesting, and the 11-year-old girl and her brother both covered their smirks. All right, let's play a quick game. Keep your mouth shut until I say something is the term for it. After a few minutes of silence, Axel heard Sandalio snicker, and he raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Another bush caught on fire. Poor bush. Ulrika nearly burst out laughing, but she held it in instead. Instead, she sighed dramatically and looked around, moving her head. Ulrika appeared hesitant, as though she wanted to speak, but she was anything but, and the guardian gave her a startled look. What? He asked warily, aware that he was about to fall into a trap. Are we already there? If Konoha's gates had not come into view, the entire forest would have exploded in flames. Axel sighed in relief and dropped to his knees, gazing up at the sky. Grateful to the all-powerful fire gods. Indeed, we are here, indeed. As a child was rolling on the ground laughing, another was grinning, and what appeared to be an adult was losing his mind. Other travelers glanced at the group and quickly passed the strange trio, leaving them to their antics. At last, Mom told us about this old man. Let's go see him. The two guards saw the child run by and started to get up when two more people came by, pursuing the girl. Naturally, the tallest one stopped and gave them papers. Ulrika got up, dusted herself, and then ran towards the Fates. I take it that you've come to see the Hokage? Axel sighed when one of the guards asked. He was tall, taller than most people they knew. Oh, that's what the papers say. Have you committed it to memory? With fluid motion Axel took the papers back and walked into Konoha. The strange man grumbled to himself as he lost sight of the kids. Great, just great. I lost them now. I'm going to be killed by Muzai and the others. Two Anbu jumped down in front of the two guards when he was out of sight, and after nodding to one another, they sent a note to their leader and went after the pyro. Two more Anbu then went in search of the children. Hi, Ulrika, we're meant to remain with Axel, Sandalio groaned as his sister just laughed and raced ahead. He was apprehensive as they were gaining attention on the somewhat silent streets. Ulrika. Slow down, Fuzzy. While here, let's take a look around. Sandalio winced as he realized how loud they were in the village, and he was never loud. He didn't like to draw attention to himself. She shouted back to him, and her voice echoed off the buildings. You're going to force me to repeat things that, given my age, I really shouldn't be saying, he whimpered, and his twin laughed. He followed her to a park, where she eventually stopped when she noticed some children staring at them like they were crazy. Ulrika is the crazy one. Crap, can't swear, can't swear. Sandalio nearly swore but refrained, letting out a sigh of relief, but he stiffened when one of the children materialized in front of him. The child smiled and a white dog on his head barked in agreement, saying, You know, you both are weird. I assume you're not from around here, are you? Genius. How did you figure that one out? Oh, your significant other is very cute. I assume that you two fight together? Simply put, he's not there for show. Correct? Ulrika showered the white puppy with affection, and the boy appeared both proud and offended. Yes, we do engage in combat together. I travel everywhere with Akamaru. I'm Kiba, by the way. He extended his hand to Ulrika, who stopped her fawning to smile and shake it. Hi, Teeth. My name is Ulrika, and this is Sandalio, my twin. You can call him Sandy, though. Her twin growled as she grinned at him. No, I can't be called Sandy. Not allowed to use profanity or succumb to temptation. As the young boy began to meditate, Ulrika and Kiba both began to perspire. He's strange. Hey, look. Who are your pals? The young girl glanced over her shoulder at the other group, who were staring at them, and blinked. You're right. Ulrika sweated but nodded. The only girl is Hinata, she has social issues. And the other spiky-haired boy is Shino. The boy with the pineapple hair is Shikamaru, and the muscled boy is Choji. He held his hand to cover one side of his mouth as he whispered to her, Just don't call Choji fat and you're good. Ulrika waved to them and nodded. Hey, wouldn't you all like to come over here? she shouted, and Kiba winced. She noticed this with her peripheral vision, and she also noticed how the others looked away, uncomfortable. Shino nudged the glasses on his eyes, a sign of hesitation and uneasiness. She decided to ask what this was all about. "What's with the flinching, peeps?" Kiba glanced at his friends as she asked. Ulrika's eyebrows shot up, and Sandalio paused his meditation to listen. "Well, you guys aren't from here, so you wouldn't know. Twins were born 11 years ago. However, the village was attacked by a large demon at the same time. It was the Kyuubi, and its power was insane." He was telling them about Ulrika and Sandalio, and the twins looked at one another and knew where this was going. The only thing the fourth Hokage could do to stop it was to seal the demon away. He thus sealed the demon in the older boy, one of his own 2 children. However, the villagers were incensed when the recently appointed third Hokage informed them of this because Minato Sama had died during the sealing. To be precise, he was pissed off. Sandalio gasped, and Kiba turned to face him as his sister rolled her eyes. "You swore." Kiba sneered, and Ulrika laughed as her twins' eyes widened. "So, yeah? Anyway, let's get back to my tale. Because they thought the boy was the demon and his sister was equally evil, many attempted to kill the baby. But nobody managed to kill the infants, no matter what." Ulrika grinned and said, "But they didn't really succeed because that day everyone learned who the twins were. Until one cold winter night, an elderly couple burned down their orphanage in order to blame the babies, and a mob succeeded in kidnapping the twins and leaving them in the middle of the forest to die." Ulrika's eyes were filled with anger. In addition, the Hokage changed on that day. Since then, nothing has been the same because he cracked down hard. It's so quiet because of this. People are too scared to make a fuss about themselves. Even outsiders must be aware of this. Ulrika and Sandalio exchanged anxious looks, and Ulrika responded on their behalf while sheepishly rubbing her head. She started to say, well you see, but a loud voice cut her off. "Ulrika! Sandalio! You two are so dead, damn it, I have been stalked by creepers the entire time to find you two, and I'm getting tired of it." Ulrika eeped and hid behind her brother, who shook his head as the Konoha children turned to see a very tall man stalking towards them. "To resolve this matter, we are now heading to the Hokage." "Damn, you make friends fast," he said, pausing while he was grabbing the twins to look at the other kids. "Yes, Axel, wait. Thanks for sharing that story with us, but we must leave now," Ulrika said, slipping out of his hold and turning to face Kiba. "I hope to see you all soon." She gave Kiba a wink, causing him to flush. When Axel finally released the twins, the 3 of them made quite a sight, with the 2 kids attracting attention and one of them being happy and waving at everyone while the other was irritated and silent. "Why do they all look at us so intently? They almost seem to think we're strange," her brother moaned as she chirped joyfully. "You really are strange. This is embarrassing. Can't you just let her know where the tower is, Axel, and let's move forward? This is embarrassing." Axel sighed, then grinned and responded sarcastically, waving his finger at the young boy. "My dear friend, how is this embarrassing? Now, don't you like all the attention?" With a groan and a shake of his head, Sandalio acknowledged that the older twin wasn't. "The 2 of you are unworkable. Why couldn't Fran or Vincent join us instead?" he mumbled, and the other 2 paid no attention. Ulrika remained hyper the entire time, observing how the villagers responded and concealing her behavior behind her hyperactivity. She smirked at her brother's comments, and only her own group was aware of what she was actually doing. Ulrika studied the village and different stores, spotting multiple presences following them. Ulrika slapped her face at the obviousness of the tower, which stood in the center of the village. "So, isn't that just dumb? Your boss keeps the location of your team's headquarters hidden so that enemies can attack and destroy it. He keeps it out of sight. Seriously, I'm going to mention this to this old man when we meet him." Sweat fell from Axel's and Sandalio's eyes as they ascended the stairs to the Hokage's office. When they arrived, they discovered a lengthy hallway, and the secretary stationed at the staircase's entrance directed them to the Hokage's office. "I see that you and Hokage Sama have an appointment." Ulrika began talking to the young woman after she stood up and said, "Let me walk you to his office." "Miss, you're very attractive." The young woman blushed at the compliment and thanked her. Encouraged, Ulrika began talking about her on a variety of topics, but the secretary interrupted them when she saw they had arrived. The young woman gave the young girl a kind smile and extended her hand. As her brother rolled his eyes and Axel smirked, Ulrika smiled and said, "It was a pleasure talking to you, Ulrika." Axel's clever remark when the woman was out of earshot made Ulrika laugh. "I see you're making friends left and right, while your brother remains antisocial like Vincent." Sandalio scowled at his guardian, who simply grinned and knocked on the door. They heard a tired voice beckoning them inside, so they did. just to find an elderly man going through papers with little regard for the group. I'll summon my Anbu team if you try to bribe me once more. The Hokage's eyes widened as he finally looked up, saying, "Oh, I thought you were different people." Axel muttered something sarcastic, but the old man ignored him. "Come in and have a seat." He waved his hand to 3 chairs in front of his desk, with the boy sitting on his left and the girl on his right. Before he spoke, Sarutobi looked at the man in the center, taller than most of the people he knew, with long, red, and spiky hair, emerald eyes that stared back at him, calculating but also lazy, and 2 purple tears under each cheek. He was dressed in a simple black shirt, jeans, and black boots, and his hands were covered with black gloves. He looked at the young boy, and he felt as though he had seen him before. He had short, spiky blonde hair with sporadic red streaks running through it. Red spikes fell in front of his sapphire eyes, which were studying him. He was sun-tanned, which was odd because the other 2 were peach and pale, the tall one being peach-skinned, and the girl was healthy pale. The boy looked no older than 11 years old, and he wore a black shirt and black pants, and black boots, just like the adult. His gaze shifted to the girl, whose emerald eyes had flecks of red in the right eye, while her scarlet hair was in a ponytail and her own bangs were spiked and hung by her face. She was wearing a black shirt with a white wolf over her right breast. Not that she had any. A dark white jacket that functioned as a coat over her shirt, and blue jean shorts. Unlike the other 2, she wore plain white tennis shoes with black and gold laces. "You're tired of looking at us, old man?" she asked, and her 2 companions sighed. The old man raised an eyebrow, half amused by her acting like his grandson, who was already disrespectful due to his now only son Asuma, and half annoyed because no one outside of his family dared to speak to him in such a way. He was about to say something, but the tall one interrupted him by raising a hand. "Hokage, hold on. I think you've been anticipating our arrival, or have you grown too old to remember?" His eyes widened as he was ready to order guards to escort the group out because he was sick of the insults. He fell asleep without being able to say, "Wait, you mean you were the," and started crying when he understood why the kids looked so familiar to him. They resembled a mix of their parents. "All right, old man? Who are we?" Sarutobi sighed, lit a pipe, and put it in his mouth as the girl grinned. "I take it that you 2 are the same kids from 11 years ago." The kids nodded when he asked, and the elderly eyes looked at their caregiver. "I take it you're their caregiver?" Axel extended his hand in response to his question. "Got it committed to memory. It's Axel." Sarutobi's eyebrows shot up at that, and the boy he recognized as Naruto answered, "And yeah, but only one of their caretakers. Axel was one of the 4 people who brought us up as humans, but other people also helped us train and develop. We were also raised by wolves." Ulrika laughed as the old man's eyebrows shot up at the last line. "Our mother is Muzai, head of the Hell Wolf tribe, which is a branch of the Demon Wolf clan." "Oh, calm down, old man. We're not bad. Demons are just like humans," she said, laughing, and Sarutobi laughed too. "Every bunch has some rotten eggs in it." The old man laughed again as she took the lead and began the conversation, saying, "Anyway, Mom said you would give us the choice whether or not to be ninja in your village. She said that you would also give us some freedoms, but what are they exactly?" she asked. The elderly man nodded when she asked. "She's right. I would give you your parents' house, which is located in a section of the nearby forest, if you said yes. You would have freedom and privacy there. Additionally, you would be permitted to visit your family during your free time, which I admit few ninja have much of." The girl, who he remembered as Yusaragi, thought about this and snapped her fingers. "I will also give you vacation time, as to put it if you ask for it and have been doing well on your missions. Isn't it possible for us to relocate our family and the other 3 people here?" Naruto moaned as she asked. "Yes, Ulrika, that's a really good idea. Let's relocate some demons here to a location that was recently attacked by one. In addition, the fact that Gakido is sealed in me will likely make them wary of us." "Ulrika? Why do you go by that name?" Axel sighed as Sarutobi cut him off, and the 2 kids turned to face him. "Dude. Mom gave us that name. When we were about 7 years old, she told us our original names and offered us the option of adopting those or our wolf tribe names. My brother is Sandalio, and my name is Ulrika." Ulrika responded before her brother could say anything, "But you're right to assume that our names are also Naruto and Yusaragi." "Oh, I see." The old leader pulled out his pipe and sighed, "It seems I have a big announcement to make to the village. I trust this village because I had taken to eradicating everyone I believed to be unworthy for many years. Of course, nothing is flawless. Some people are still too scared to express their opinions. I do, however, have faith in the majority of Konoha's population. And it's not misplaced this time. I agree with your idea, Ulrika." The girl smiled and nodded. "Then, old man, I consent to being a ninja. Her twin nodded, concurring with the notion as well. Hey, who am I? Liver chopped. You can also include me in your arsenal, but I don't expect to be treated like a tool, and I'm not one. My allegiance is to my boss and the twins. Remember, it was he who called you. In any case, Sarutobi nodded and said, he told me to become a ninja in case the kids want to play ninja. Naturally, Axel.Kun. Thank you, and I fully comprehend. It's time to share the word. Come, I'll tell my Anbu to gather the town. Ulrika smiled and hurried out the door, then scowled as she noticed the others were moving too slowly. I'm going to tell the entire village myself if you guys are going to be so slow. Sarutobi nodded and laughed at the girl's disposition. Her threat should not be taken lightly. She will, too. Ulrika was jumping with excitement as the three men rushed to the stadiums for the Chunin exam's final exam, while Axel complained and Sandalio muttered something that the other two couldn't hear. I am so excited. Will we see the others? I wonder. What will they think? I wonder. They'll have to cope, Sandy, so it doesn't matter if they dislike us. She questioned her brother, who was debating whether to give her a headshake. As more and more people arrived at the stadium, he finally said, you know, I don't think we should give you coffee ever again, and continued to stare as the four individuals stood in the middle, visible to all. What? But it's excellent, it's unbelievable that I've never experienced it before. Why didn't you introduce me to coffee earlier, Axel? The redhead smirked, crossed his arms, and leaned against the wall as she turned to face him. Because you already have enough hypertension. Crazy, too. Sarutobi laughed as he observed the conversation. The vast space was soon filled with ninja and villagers, and Ulrika and reluctant Sandalio were astounded by the size of the stadium and the number of people living in Konoha. Of course, if it weren't for the mass trials, before Sarutobi raised his arms and the room fell silent. My Konohagakure people, now is the moment to put your loyalty to the ultimate test. When the Hokage started talking again, everyone fell silent as they whispered, becoming anxious. We're here to welcome two Konoha citizens who were lost to us 11 years ago. Meet. Hey. Hello. Kiba and them. Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. Ulrika interrupted the Hokage abruptly and frantically waved to her new friends who were seated. Is she insane? The Hokage cannot be interrupted. Who are these individuals? Here comes another killing. Those poor fools, Yasuragi and Naruto Namikaze. Before uttering the two names, the Hokage waited for a moment of silence, which he thought would heighten the dramatic effect, and it did. The crowd began to cheer, roar, and simply become perplexed, and despite the Hokage's gesture of silence, they continued to roar. Hey, humans! Something has to be said by the Hooverage, shouted Ulrika, who then waved to everyone when they stared at her. Hi, how are you all doing? She gave Kiba another wink, and Kiba blushed from the attention. They were considering running away when the girl had called out to their section, but the Hokage revealed who they were, and Kiba was really mad that she hadn't told them. Of course, they might not have believed her, but... Yes, thank you, Yasuragi, or Ulrika as some may refer to you. Anyway, to begin, Sarutobi coughed into his hand. Listen, everyone, while I tell their story. After he finished, there was total silence, and Sandalio nearly winced. Despite his composed exterior, he was extremely nervous on the inside. Wasn't it the Hokage's decision to reveal that Kyuubi was sealed in him that infuriated the villagers? His eyes widened. And no one speak till I am finished. The Hokage then told the story of the twins, with Ulrika interjecting her own story occasionally, but her two companions shook their heads at her antics. I didn't just scream. No. Ulrika gave him a strange look before approaching him and prodding his forehead. Well, Sandy? Despite her hesitation, she asked him. I just swore. Swearing was sensitive for the poor child, and he complained as Axel and his twin flinched. She answered, Youch, and Sarutobi turned to face the poor child who was rocking back and forth. Is he okay? Ulrika waved her hand and yelled loudly enough for the villagers to hear, and her brother understood that she wasn't doing it to make fun of him but rather to calm them down. Yes, but he has a habit of using profanity. He was raised not to, despite Uncle Sid's one attempt to get him to. However, he does not enjoy using profanity, and it seems that he just used it for the first time. I'm incredibly proud. She smiled at her brother, who gave her a stern look. Stop talking. It's not amusing. Aunt Fran and Uncle Vincent will murder me, not to mention Mom. He grumbled, and everyone who heard laughed. Oh, I swear since I was 3 years old. She will adjust it. Sarutobi's eyes widened as he glanced at Axel, who was leaning against the wall with his eyes closed, after Ulrika waved away his worries. Yes, it is true. Okay. He cursed. Sid was visiting, and Ulrika imitated. Since then, she has learned a lot of swear words from Sid. even though many of them are prohibited. Sarutobi grimaced, and Ulrika chuckled while her brother persisted in complaining. The old man could see that things were going to get more interesting here, that Konoha would never be the same, and that many of the villagers, despite their nervousness, were trying not to pass judgment because they remembered the last time they had passed judgment too harshly on defenseless children. He nodded and smiled thinly, and he said, "Yes, I am proud of my village now, for they passed." "Hey, Kiba. Come down here, you should, Shikamaru, you too. Shoji, Shino and Hinata." The Inuzuka sighed as Akamaru laughed at him, although to many it sounded more like coughing. Ulrika yelled and waved to the group. He stood up, and his friends followed, though Shikamaru grumbled that it was bothersome. "Hey everyone. How are you?" she asked and laughed when Kiba glared. "Oh yeah, well, I just thought you wouldn't believe us if we told you guys. Besides, Axel dragged us off, remember?" Kiba chuckled as he recalled. Ulrika laughed this time, saying, "Oh yeah. So, what names do you go by, because I'm confused as heck?" Her friends, OHED, as she responded, "We go by our tribe names, the one mom gave us. Ulrika, which is me, and Sandalio, which is Naruto." Shikamaru inquired curiously, "I see. So what's it like living with demonic wolves?" And the others paid attention. Ulrika sighed dramatically, mimicking Riku's gesture of hanging her arms and head before swaying. "Well, it's fun of course. The Hell Wolves are one of the nicest demon clans. They're really powerful, too. So if Konoha ever needed any allies, you've got us by your side. Which is a good thing, though, because we're going to be ninjas. We have to go to the academy, though. It's gonna be boring, I bet." With a groan, Shikamaru said, "Really? It's a good thing you got here when you did, because no one can enter the academy half-year," Shoji called out. Ulrika blinked. Aside from Shikamaru's earlier question, this is the first time she's heard the two talk together. Troublesome, that's all this is. She laughed and Axel moaned, "Well, Spikes, you don't know the half of it, then." Ulrika giggled and clutched her sides as Axel began to freak out. "You're seriously gonna need to chill, OMG. I did not just say that. And I did not just say OMG, what the foo." She received a glare and eeped as she hid behind Sandalio, who blinked. "Wow, Axel. Are you turning into a girl?" she asked. Ulrika fled for her life as Axel pursued her after he sidestepped and said, "I'm not the one who made him angry. You deal." Sarutobi and her new circle of friends looked to Sandalio for clarification. Ulrika's laughter and Axel's profanity reverberated throughout the stadium. "They're immature. As long as you don't give Ulrika coffee and make Axel angry, you're pretty much safe, kinda." The two do get hyper. What the devil were they getting into? The Konoha locals questioned. Hinata whispered, "You. San. Sandalio.san. Are they going T.toh? Hurt each other?" The shy girl blushed when the boy turned to smile at her. He laughed at an inside joke, and Sarutobi wondered why it was so funny. "Oh, probably. But it's all good fun, because even though they seem like they're playing, they consider it training also. They both, well, I'll let you guys figure it out." He dismissed the village and watched as Axel finally caught Ulrika and slung her over his shoulder, deciding to ask Axel what the two kids knew later. As Axel arrived at the group, she kept on laughing despite being caught. She waved to the others, upside down. As Axel and Sandalio moaned, she laughed at her own joke and asked, "Hey, how's it hanging?" Sandalio yelled at her, "That was lame, even for you." Ulrika smiled broadly. Although it was very slight and faint, Sandalio blushed and said, "You should know lame, mister, I don't cuss." However, Ulrika and Axel both laughed when they saw it. Axel put Ulrika down after the young one shot back, "You guys are both jerks. Don't you guys have somewhere else to be? I don't know, doing something useful with your lives?" He said, "Wartime now, buddy. Got it memorized?" And the pyro continued before Sandalio could respond. "At least Ulrika and I know good food, vegetarian. Who eats only plants?" "I do. You pyromaniac. Considering I have a demon inside me who's eaten humans before, meat just doesn't settle with me." When her head cleared from the blood rush, Ulrika said, "Oh, that's an excuse," and went in. Gakido only ate evil humans. "It's still gross. Not at all. Besides, it's animal meat you're eating, not eating. Got it memorized?" As his twin collapsed to the ground, laughing, and Axel snarled, Sandalio grinned and said, "At least I'm not a girl. OMG this, OMG that." Ulrika chose to laugh and avoided getting involved in the now verbal altercation between Axel and Sandalio, saying, "Okay, you little twerp. Who's the one who cries every time they see a sad movie?" "I'm just sensitive, that's all, sensitive." You always cry during the happy ones too, especially if it's a chick flick. Ulrika turned blue as she laughed too hard at the taunts they exchanged, saying, "You're just jealous because girls like me, not you." The others, with the exception of Sarutobi, who was also amused, were wide-eyed when Shino asked, "Shouldn't we stop them?" Shikamaru was about to correct her grammatical error when she interrupted, saying, "Nope. It's funner this way, bugs." Yes, I know more fun is the proper way to say it, but funner is more fun to say. Ulrika saw his slight smirk but remained silent. Troublesome. This is going to be a drag, I can just tell. The three nodded, and the four began to leave. All tight, you two. Children, it's best if you return to your homes for now. You can talk to the twins when they settle down. Axel, Sandalio, Ulrika. It's time I showed you where you'll be living. Ulrika then turned around and saluted them with a smile. Sandalio did not turn around, he simply waved. When Choji asked, "Is it me, or does that Sandy guy seem a whole lot like an emotional Sasuke?" Kiba burst out laughing, and his puppy followed suit. Shaking their heads, the children went back to their homes and talked about the recent events. Things won't be dull with those three around. Troublesome people. Sarutobi led the three of them to a mansion tucked away in the Konoha forests, out of sight. Although the walk wasn't very long, it was concealed from prying eyes. When Sandalio and Ulrika saw how big their new home was, they both gasped. Nodding, Axel said, "It's huge, holy crap," but he wasn't particularly impressed. This was smaller than HQ, although it was quite large by human standards. Suspecting Ulrika might intentionally use her new status as an excuse, he said, "This is where you three will be leaving. Next week, when school starts, I'll send someone down to escort you. No need to be late on your first day, right?" Sarutobi grinned as she complained, "Aw man. They're foes that plan, spoiled by an old man." His intuition was always correct. They were now in the room with the front door. "All right. Let me show you around. This here room is the front room, as you can see." The furniture was dark brown with light cream pillows placed on top of burnt red walls. One wall had a couch, the other had a fireplace, and there were two chairs on either side of the couch. People could set their cups and other items on the circular stone coffee table. There was a large bay window with views of the trees and wildlife on the same side of the door. A young woman with long, straight red hair and green eyes was smiling next to a young man with bright yellow hair and sapphire eyes in a picture above the fireplace. She was pregnant, as evidenced by her slightly enlarged stomach. Others turned to look at what Ulrika was staring at, and she asked, "Is that our?" With a sorrowful smile, the Hokage nodded. There was a pause while Sandalio and Ulrika looked at the photo of their human parents. "Yes, Ulrika. The man in Minato Namikaze, and the woman next to him is Kushina Uzumaki. Yours and Sandalio's parents." That photo was not going to be taken down. Over the fireplace was a shelf filled with pictures and other trinkets. Sarutobi went on the tour, deciding to let them look through them later. As they proceeded into the living room, they noticed that it was a larger version of the front room. From the front room, we enter a hallway. Going straight you enter the living room, social room. Stopping here, this is just a storage closet. You place your coats and stuff like that here. The three doors on this side are two bedrooms with a bathroom in between. The other door on the left-right side is a public bathroom. The wooden floor had a large light dot and dark brown rug in the center, and there was more room to accommodate a large crowd. The rug in front of the fireplace was the same shade of dark red as the walls. The three newcomers noticed that a large opening on the wall across from where they were standing led to the kitchen. The three shook their heads when asked, "As you can see, that there is the kitchen. You can look at it later. Do any of you cook?" The one who cooks is either Vincent or Riku. They forgot to teach us how to, though. It's kinda funny." Ulrika laughed. Sandalio interrupted before the redhead could respond, saying, "Oh, I see. Don't you cook, Axel.kun?" Last time he tried to cook, the smell itself made many fall unconscious. The one brave person who dared to eat it ended up puking his guts out for the next 7 days. Literally. Axel complained, which made Sarutobi shudder, but he made no attempt to refute the charging. As they went on, they noticed that the backyard was an enclosed garden with a variety of plants and flowers from all over the world. Okay, then. The kitchen has a door which has stairs leading to an underground training arena. It has various seals so that whenever you train, a large alarm will tell if someone is here. They will also hide your presence, and other uses. Ulrika let out a happy sigh as birds and other wildlife flew and ran around. The girl smiled and nodded, asking, "Do you garden, Ulrika? Chan?" She smiled as she took in the garden's beauty and said, "I sure do. It's one of the many things that helps me relax. Sarutobi laughed. Then you and your mother share a hobby. She planted this garden, creating utopia. In fact, this is what it is called, utopia. Ulrika inhaled all the fragrances and said, "It's an excellent name." The Hokage could feel her calmness instantly. Ulrika was noticeably calmer as they went on. "Ah, my heaven." The three followed the elderly man as he ascended the stairs and turned right. "There is a stairway here. You can see from the living room the inside balcony. The stairs curve up to that strip, where you can go either left or right." "If we go right first," the man said. The living room was visible where they looked down. It was really awesome. They entered and saw the large bedroom with a king-sized bed in the center. "Up here is the master bedroom and bathroom, which I suppose Axel will get." The closet was accessed by a wooden sliding door, and the walls were cream in color. It was big, too, of course. There was another door leading to the bedroom, and the bed was sheetless because no one slept here. Sarutobi laughed at the three responses at this point. With Sandalio's left eyebrow twitching and Axel grinning, Ulrika got agitated once more and began complaining about how Axel got all the cool stuff. Not caring that he used profanity, Sandalio questioned, "Seriously? Who the hell needs a closet in their bathroom?" "You guessed it, indeed." Inside the bedroom was an open closet located in a corner. Despite its small size, it was still a closet. As they entered, they noticed that there was a jacuzzi bathtub and a separate shower, but a wall blocked the bathroom's more private features. The toilet was tucked away in a wall corner, out of sight. Ulrika smirked and said, "Damn, Axel. You want to let me have this part of the house?" As Sarutobi led them across the balcony, he only said, "In your dreams, kid." On the left side were 8 rooms. One was a recreation area with a variety of gaming systems, a hockey table, a pool table, and dancing machines. There was also a stereo and a large screen TV. To reduce the brightness, there were blue smudges on the orange walls. Like all the floors, these were made of wood. There were 3 more bathrooms. The other 5 rooms, which were all about the same size, were bedrooms. "I'm definitely changing the scheme later on," Axel said, pausing to smirk at the children. "The only thing wrong with my bedroom is the colors. I love this house. Fran will love it too, because it's not destroying nature, and because of the garden," said Ulrika. She hurried down the stairs after saying that. She started to say, "I'm going into town," but was stopped by Axel's voice. Sarutobi raised his eyebrows at the last sentence but remained silent. "You should get some rest. We have a lot of cleaning, painting, and shopping to do tomorrow." Regarding those things, he thought the redhead was a little sensitive. Ulrika, though, felt no need to hold back. She yelled, "You are such a girl," as she rushed Sandalio to take their respective bedrooms. Ulrika hurried to a bedroom with a separate bathroom and exclaimed, "I call this one." The next bedroom, with its own bathroom, was Sandalio's. "I'm not a girl," Axel retorted. "Okay, you have a feminine, anorexic figure, you enjoy shopping, chocolate, and licking ice cream popsicles, and you have dude PMS. Admitted, Axel. At that point, the half-demon fled as Axel began to stalk the girl. "Eep. Get back here, you little runt." "I'm not a runt, I just haven't grown yet." "Where did you even learn those things?" "Well, Sid, Roxas, Sora, Riku and Riku, Lerxine, Macaw and Soul, Liz, Jaden, Chaz, Jesse also commit on it. I'm going to KLL them. A random bush outside has caught fire." Dude PMS. After saying, Ulrika, Sarutobi went to complete his paperwork. The half-demon was finally captured by the older man, who led her to the garden, where she instantly became calm. "That's cheating," Axel grinned as Ulrika inhaled the various fragrances. "I don't play fair." After saying that, he made the decision to look through the storage closets for bed linens. Sandalio had slipped into the training room, where he was astounded by the size, using the distraction. There was a small forest in one corner and a lake with a waterfall in the other. The little boy realized he was standing on a soft grass meadow as the 2 distinct areas filled the entire room. On the opposite side of the lake, he noticed a door, but opening it required crossing the water. He couldn't understand it, but he recalled how a Shinigami named Rukia had taught him to manage his own energy. It was obviously not the same as hers, but the idea was the same. For a moment, he questioned whether human ninjas were as energetic. If so, they most likely used a water-based technique. He also pondered whether they walked across it using energy. He initially believed that it was impossible, but then he recalled that Demix had walked across water, and the water boy had given him an odd response when Sandalio had questioned him about it. Demix had told him, "It's all about the feet, duh, little man." No matter how much he stared and focused on his feet, it didn't make sense then, and it didn't make sense now. He nodded his head and made the decision to ask one of them if they had encountered them. But it does now. You have to walk across the water sending energy to your feet. But how? I've tried many times, maybe I'll ask Kiba, or one of them. His eyes narrowed resolutely. If I don't, there's always school. But I have to find out what's beyond that door. Ulrika called out to Sandalio from the training arena. Sandalio, get your ass up here, it's time to sleep. Sandalio rolled his eyes. To avoid her, he ought to have shut the door. Unfortunately, she would simply descend here, seize him by the ear, and drag him upstairs. And so would she. Silently, he turned and made his way to his bedroom. He noticed that Ulrika or Axel had made the bed and located the sheets. He went to take a shower in his bathroom while rolling his eyes. Ulrika's yell echoed through the house, "Night everyone," to which Axel responded. "Night. Now shut up, sorry, Axel, grr." After that, it became quiet and serene. Sandalio was unaware of his level of fatigue until he abruptly felt it after hitting the bed. The bed was cozy. He lowered his eyes and dozed off. This is hilarious. A scream rang out through the house. Ulrika laughed as her brother leapt from his bed. He had been awakened by her splashing him with icy water. With a humorous tone, she questioned him, "How come you're more serious than me, but I wake up as the sun rises?" Ulrika dropped the blue bucket she was carrying and fled to hide behind Axel, saying, "Ulrika, I'm going to kill you." Axel blinked as the two circled his body in a merry go round. "He's trying to kill me." Using him as a barrier between herself and Sandalio, Ulrika gave him a start. Axel moaned as he sat at the kitchen table, waiting for the coffee to finish. "Will you two stop it already? Damn it, go get ready, coffee." Although the twins followed his instructions, they continued to push one another the entire time. After 5 hours, all three of them were at last prepared. Axel because it took him a long time to style his hair, but he wasn't completely awake until he had eaten and had coffee. It took a while for Ulrika and Sandalio to get ready because they were fighting the entire time. They also took a very long time to irritate Axel because they were children. Still half asleep but unable to return to bed, the pyro muttered, "You did that on purpose, brats. Your fault." As they returned to the village, prepared to go shopping and all that, they all got into a fight. "All right, first we need to go get more clothes, paints, cleaning supplies, etc., etc. We also need to buy food, but we'll do that after we get finished, or halfway finished, cleaning. Got it memorized?" The twins moaned, "Got it memorized." Axel was adamant that they all clean the house, even though Ulrika wanted to go find her new friends and Sandalio wanted to train in the arena. The day was going to be long. Or perhaps not. To Sandalio's distress, the entire day was devoted to cleaning and shopping. He detested cleaning and shopping. And here he was, pulled along by the world's two most notorious shopaholics. Regardless of the store's usefulness, they visited all of them. Sandalio finally had enough when Ulrika said, "Oh, let's go here," as they were getting close to a perfume shop. The boy yelled at the other two, and people stopped to stare at him. "No, we are going back to the house. We are going to clean the house. And we are going to get finished so we can have time to get used to the city." "All right," he said. At last, he took hold of his friend's hands and pulled them all the way back to their home, including all of their shopping bags. The poor boy was made to torture shopping, and people watched with sympathy and laughter. But a lot of unmarried women decided who their next target would be after taking a quick look at Axel. After all, a man who enjoys shopping is a true gem. In addition, he was attractive. That was a huge advantage. The redhead shuddered as he realized that the years ahead in Konoha would be terrible. He shrugged his shoulders, wondering why that would be. He couldn't have fangirls already, could he? He was too busy thinking about the sensation of instinctive fear to notice the cats staring at him. But the twins didn't. They chose to ignore it even though they questioned why Axel was receiving these kinds of looks. What might have happened if they hadn't warned the redhead? When they got to the house, they turned up the music and got to work cleaning, forgetting about Konoha's strangeness. Ulrika was responsible for her room, bathroom, living room, and kitchen. Sandalio cleaned the bathrooms and bedrooms upstairs and downstairs, except for Axel's. Axel cleaned his bedroom, the front room, and every other room that was present. Given that they had a plan, they immediately set to work. To get things going, the three of them went downstairs. Ulrika noticed someone approaching the house from the kitchen window while she was there unpacking and washing dishes. He was wearing an odd cloak that obscured his body and head. The shape of the figure told her it was a man. As he approached, the girl's eyes narrowed. She wondered, is that an enemy or a friend? And went to the front room, where she saw Axel opening the door. "Hey, it's you. Good to see ya, Dante," Ulrika squealed when she saw her big brother Dante, the half-demon who had thrown back the cloak. Dante. Sandalio heard his sister over the music and came to see what the commotion was. He was taken aback and simply stood in the doorway, laughing as his sister glomped the poor man. Dante laughed at Ulrika's hold on his neck and said, "Hey, little sis. Where's the little man?" It was a flying glomp, not just a glomp. If you ask him, he's the worst of the glomps. Her unexpected strength almost knocked him down. Sandalio held up his hand and waved lazily, saying, "Over here, bro." Before Dante could respond mockingly, the young boy went on, "You interrupted our cleaning, you know." "Thank you." Ulrika's deliberate off-key singing was becoming annoying as she screamed out the song's lyrics. He rubbed his neck after she hugged him and said, Welcome, little bro. Geez, Ulrika, you can let go now. How strong have you gotten?" Ulrika smiled proudly and said, "Sorry about that, Dante. But I've gotten a lot stronger now. I can even kick Sandy's ass." Dante laughed at the other twin's response to the statement. "First of all, you shouldn't say that word. Second of all, no you can't." "Yeah, I can." "No, you can't. I defeated you by using that ash bomb." "That was a fluke and you ran away after." Axel sighed as he pulled the two snarling children apart, saying, "I can still kick your ass." He turned to Dante and said sharply, "That's enough, you two. Dante, it's unusual for you to appear all of a sudden. Last we heard from you was 3 years ago. What happened to you? Have you reported to leader?" The twins fell silent, and the silver-haired man sighed. They wanted to know their big brother's fate. Axel nodded as Dante pointedly remarked, "Well, yeah. He's known where I've been all this time. I've been down in Underrealm. 1, trying to figure out who's after, well, you know." He shook his head in response to the question, "Yeah, I know, and did you find any lead?" They looked at each other curiously, wondering what they were discussing. "No, not yet. I've spent 3 years down there, and I've found nothing. Sure, there were rumors, but I don't think the attack was from anyone down there. If it was, then people are pretty tight-lipped about it." "Damn it," the twins said. When Axel and Dante noticed this, only Axel made the decision to act. He waved his hand absently and said, "Nothing you two need to worry about. It happened forever ago." Despite knowing better, the two kids chose to overlook it. When it was necessary, they would be informed. There's no point in complaining about it now and making themselves look bad. With surprise, Dante said, "So, you guys agreed?" Dante was given missions and informed of their plans even though he wasn't a part of their small group because, after all, he worked best alone. And although he didn't follow anyone, Dante's rebellious nature was something Ulrika admired. He occasionally worked for the organization. Dante nodded, smiling at her mischievousness. "Yep. We're gonna be students at the academy where they teach kids to be ninja heroes. Of course, Sandalio and I already kick ass, but what's a few more tricks under the sleeves?" she said. She was attempting to provoke a fight with her brother. Sandalio moaned but fought the impulse to argue about a useless topic, but Ulrika was not finished. She grinned at the growling behind her and said, "Dude, I think Sandy has a girlfriend already, though. Her name is Hinata, and she's real shy." Ulrika grinned and Sandalio growled, "What the? If it's a fight you want, let's take this outside." At the girl's antics and the boy's reaction, the two adults shook their heads. Sandalio nodded but raised his eyes in response, saying, "All right, bro. Let's make this more interesting. A bet, if you will." Sandalio grinned and shook her outstretched hand, saying, "I win. Not only are you my slave for a week starting the day we start school, but you also have to start cussing. You win and I'll be your slave starting Monday, and I'll give up swearing." The twin grinned confidently and said, "Deal. Get ready to do my bidding for a week, sis." The kids were led to the outdoor training area by the two adults. When his sister said, "Be ready for me to kick your ass," Sandalio smirked and shook his head. Axel declared, "In your dreams," and started the match as referee. The redhead knew that one of them would break something, but they said, "No killing each other or breaking bones." It was inevitable. The two initially walked around one another, assessing one another. Although they were both aware that they were not experts, they both knew the majority of each other's methods. Then, eager to begin, Ulrika hurried Sandalio. Her twin retreated, avoiding the wild but crazily strong blows that were directed at him. Then she leapt to her feet and kicked him in the air. When Sandalio heard a crack in his arm, he winced and blocked it. His blocking wrist was broken by her kick, but he was confident Gakido would mend it. All the broken bones did not fall on him. His mind racing with that idea, he shifted swiftly from defense to attack. Ulrika's eyes widened as Sandalio vanished from view and reappeared behind her. The last time they sparred, he had gotten faster, but Ulrika called forth a wall of fire to defend the block as Sandalio attempted to kick her in the ribs. As Ulrika called forth a whip of fire, she exclaimed, "Got to be better than that, brother." She was deadly with that thing, and her twin winced. It was only fitting that he brought out the big guns as well, since she was becoming quite serious about the spar. Literally. "Come forth, Keikoku and Yaju." Two firearms materialized in his grasp. The medium handgun in his right hand was entirely black, save for the handle, which was a deep red color. The gun on his left was identical to the other, with the exception that the handle was silver and the metal was primarily dark blue. While Axel moaned on the sidelines, Ulrika simply smirked. As the two fought, he moaned, "They always have to go all out? Can't they hold back just once?" Loud firing could be heard, and fire rained down from the sky. As the two inflicted a great deal of damage, Dante grinned. "Well, this is interesting. They certainly have grown. More powerful, more mature, more attentive, and for Ulrika, she's definitely grown with an interesting personality." Axel sighed. Dante laughed and they both returned to the fight. "Interesting. You try taking care of a mini-me, who acts like all the insane people half the time while the other is antisocial, yet mischievous. It's horrendous," I said. Ulrika swung her whip at the ground, aiming her twin with a blast of fire. Sandalio couldn't avoid it and took the full force of the blow. But Ulrika frowned and his wounds healed because of the fox within him. But even though her twin continued to shoot at her, she once again built a wall. She yelled over the din, "Face it, you can't break my defense." But her brother smirked. Ulrika was shocked when she felt bullets strike her. They hurt even though they weren't directed at important areas. There was a blast close by, sending debris at her, and the young girl quickly put her arms in an X over her face as blood dripped from her left shoulder. In the absence of his twin, Sandalio had planted a small bomb close to Ulrika and set it off. He and his twin both grinned. Her face was dripping blood from tiny cuts. "Good fight, so far. But I'm not through. If she kept using her whip at this stage, she would lose." So she brushed it aside and used fire to make a sword. She had put on black gloves before the fight to prevent the fire from scalding her hands. At close range, the guns would now be of little use. Her brother was attacked by the half-demon, who proceeded to cut his chest, but her brother set the guns in front of him, forming a definite wall. She felt a huge shock that sent her flying backwards, and her eyes widened. Despite her screams, she stood up. She wiped the blood from her mouth and grinned. The same was true for her brother. He couldn't depend on Kyubi to heal his wounds all the time because he wouldn't grow accustomed to the pain. After a while, he would order Gakido to cease healing in each spar. His clothing was torn from multiple assaults, and blood trickled from his face and hands. One adult watched with interest, the other with irritation. Both of them would have broken bones by the time they got to school. His friend was muttering to himself, and Dante simply grinned at him. It didn't appear that the twins would give up until the other was unconscious, so he would have to handle it. Ulrika, who was panting, said, "Hey, I see you have a few tricks up your sleeve." Her brother gave her a small smile. Ulrika nodded at her brother and said, "You, too, sis. Let's end this, once and for all." She changed into an enormous wolf with a burgundy coat. Then all of a sudden she was wearing different types of armor. Her chest seemed to be covered by a big black chest plate. She had black pieces covering her legs and a black headpiece covering her head. They were all white, outlined, and a white, flaming wolf with an odd symbol behind it appeared on the chest piece. It was a circle with two V's in it, and it represented the Hell Wolf tribe. One was upside down, and the other was right side up. The two V's formed a black diamond in the center. Her voice was deep but feminine as she said, "All or nothing, brother." Her brother got ready after nodding. In this form, she was incredibly fast, and he had not yet surpassed it. She suddenly appeared directly in front of him after jumping and flashing from a distance of 20 feet. As she vanished once more and was assaulted from behind, Sandalio suppressed a gasp. Before she could give a close-up fire blast, he swiftly turned around and kicked her off of him. He jumped far away, but when he failed to see her, he became perplexed. He searched everywhere, trying to feel her presence, but she had completely hidden it from him. He suddenly experienced intense heat and witnessed a wolf on fire attacking him. His twin guns flew from his hands as he screamed because he was unable to execute a barrier in time. With a laugh, she said, "Give up?" With a defiant smirk, her brother answered. "Never, sis," he said, kicking her off him in spite of the heat, which caused his legs to burn. He jumped back, and then his body was covered in ice, which acted as his own armor. The ground beneath them began to rumble as the wolf focused. "TCH, all right, you annoying pest. You won't say no after this." Hot white magma suddenly erupted and began to fall upon them. As he put up a barrier, Axel let out a cry. When Dante noticed Axel's irritated look, he laughed and said, "Damn, she's not holding back, is she?" To keep from coming into contact with the lava lake, Sandalio formed an island out of the ground. But Ulrika had no such restrictions. The heat from the surroundings gave her strength, enabling her to walk on the lava. Dante questioned incredulously, "And she wants to be stronger?" Axel sighed and gestured to the wolf form, saying, "Ah, but there is a great limit to using this form. Just watch." Since Sandalio had never witnessed his sister change and use this power before, he knew she had triumphed. Yes, her regular wolf form. But he had never seen this hell wolf form before. He would undoubtedly have perished if he had been an enemy. But he was startled when the wolf began to howl in agony and the lava abruptly returned to the ground. He was astounded to see his sister change into a human and sustain severe burns throughout her body. You see, she is just a half-demon, and thus is still affected by using her hell wolf transformation. Her human side can't handle the intense heat and fire for too long. She has been training it in secret so she could get used to it, so she can use it longer. However, 5 minutes is the limit. If she goes beyond that and she isn't ready, she'll die from the burns. Axel said as he approached the groaning girl. "You're an idiot, Ulrika. You know that form is dangerous." The girl sat up and grinned. She smiled and said, "It was fun though. By the way, Sandalio, I win." To her brother's groan. He shook his head, knowing it to be true. Axel moaned as he went to tend to the young girl. Sandalio grinned at his sister after all of his wounds were healed. "You two can explain to whoever teacher you have why Ulrika has a broken arm, cuts, bruises, and burns all over her." The other simply protruded her tongue. "You two are impossible." Ulrika said, "Yeah, but you love us anyway," and Axel grinned. As she turned her head in a pout, he smiled and said, "Apparently I do if I've stuck with you for this long. I must be insane, or something like that. All right, act that way. I assume none of you want sea salt ice cream." Ulrika, who was still hurt, jumped up and yelled as Sandalio and Dante grimaced. "Yes, absolutely, oh wow." As her wounds began to sting, she complained, "But I can't believe you're still forcing me to go to school." "Hey, it's your fault. You guys can keep cleaning while I go get the ice cream." Two people said, "Aw man," and the two adults laughed. The redhead nodded when Dante said, "I'll come with you. We should catch up on what's happening." He paused and turned to face the twins. "Fine. Now," he said, "no slacking you two." The twins nodded, and he meant it. Axel would come up with a cruel punishment if they slacked, and Ulrika didn't want to deal with anything the pyro would throw at them. Ulrika whimpered as they entered the house, both of them sighing. As the two adults made their way to town, Dante grimaced and said, "That's harsh. You wouldn't seriously punish them, would you?" Axel waved his hand and laughed. Axel smiled and his friend shook his head, laughing. "Nope. I just like to scare them, that's all. But they think I do something sadistic so they work harder. It's less work for me." "You're one sadistic, lazy bastard, ya know?" "Oh, I know?" Sandalio swore and shoved one Pop-Tart into his mouth, saving the other for his sister. "We're going to be late, damn it, Ulrika," he exclaimed. "You heard correctly." Sandalio finally swore at Ulrika, which irritated Axel. As the girl exited the garden utopia, she snatched the Pop-Tart and shoved it in her mouth with her good arm. I'm going. Bye, Axel," she cried. She dragged her brother outside, where an Anbu was waiting for them, after grabbing his arm after downing a glass of milk. The twins nodded when a serene female voice from the cat mask said, "Hello there, Sandalio.kun, Ulrika. Chan. Are you two ready?" Ulrika said, deliberately ignoring her brother, "Sorry, Neko. Senpai. It's kinda hard to get ready with one arm and a brother who doesn't care." Her brother complained in turn, but he was disregarded, saying, "Oh, shut up for once." They rushed through town, Ulrika still talking to the Anbu. Ulrika didn't mind that her left arm was in a sling and a cast. The left-handed one was Sandalio. She had a right hand. Since Ulrika's arm was broken and hurting all over, it was understandable why they were late for school. However, this did not imply that she was not energetic despite her pain. She stopped right in front of their classroom door after skittering down the hallways. Sandalio stared at the name and said, "Uruka. Sensei? Didn't Kakashi Sensei say something about him?" After wishing them luck, the Anbu had departed. Ulrika shrugged and opened the door, asking, "Good luck. Why do we need that?" "We apologize for disturbing you, Uruka. Sensei, but we are running late. I apologize, but please pardon my brother." Ulrika and her brother both bowed. Uruka nodded after glancing at the two. He gave them a kind smile, and the twins returned the smile. Well, you're not entirely late. We were just about to introduce ourselves, but since you're already up here, why don't you two go first? He said. Ulrika chirped, thank you, Uruka. Sensei. But her brother said nothing. I'm Ulrika of the Hell Wolf tribe, which is a branch of the demon wolf race. You might know me as Yasuragi, though please call me by Ulrika. This is my brother. Sandalio sighed. He crossed his arms and shrugged, saying, I can speak for myself, Ulrika. I'm Sandalio, same tribe, same thing. Uruka saw her arm, some bandages wrapped on her face and hands, and he assumed there were more along her arms. Ulrika. Chan, if I may ask, but what happened? He asked. But the little girl gave a nonchalant shrug. Just a little spar. I bet Sandy here that if I won then he would have to start cursing and be my slave for a week starting today. I won. The only reason Sandy doesn't have any broken bones and wounds is because of the fox. Hey, I stopped healing halfway through the spar to be fair. Not fair, you don't have any broken bones while your poor sister here does. Poor? You're not poor, you're sadistic and evil. Ulrika put her hand over her heart and wiped a fictitious tear from her eye, saying, thanks for the love, I'm so touched. Faker. Cheater. Sadistic. Uruka, like many others, felt compelled to break them up before they got into a fight, and he said, jerk. Ulrika felt many of the women glare at her, and she started to perspire. All right, you two. Break it up. Go sit down by Sasuke since there aren't any seats left. She suddenly understood why Neko had wished them luck. Sasuke Uchiha was their target, and they were in fangirl territory. When Sandalio noticed how many glares Ulrika was receiving, he too started to perspire. Ulrika exclaimed, what the hell? Why are y'all glaring at us? And one of the girls got to her feet. Ulrika growled and said, because, that's our Sasuke-kun, not yours outsider. The girl had pink hair. First of all, it's called freedom. Not one person belongs to another. You're just a bitch if you think that some guy belongs to you. Second, let the guy choose who he wants to be with. Y'all are idiots if you think that he doesn't get to choose. You fangirls smothering him will only make him run away from you. Damn idiotic fangirls. Ulrika hissed and Sandalio sighed. Ulrika turned from scowling at the girl with the pink hair to grinning and said, just ignore them, Ulrika. I'll get you some salt ice cream if you promise not to get into a fight on the first day. She chirped, really, thank you, Sandalio, and sat down beside Sasuke. As the others stood up and introduced themselves one by one, Sandalio rolled his eyes. The girl with violet hair returned to her seat, blushing profusely, and said shyly, I'm H. Hinata H. Hyuga. I'm glad to meet you. The twins soon noticed the pink-haired fangirl strutting confidently to the front after they all went up. When she declared, I'm Sakura Haruno and I'm going to be Sasuke-kun's girlfriend, Ulrika and Sasuke both moaned. The twins could hear the Uchiha, but it was too quiet for anyone else to hear. Ulrika whispered, either she or me is not going to survive this year, and I'm pretty sure it ain't gonna be her. Sasuke concealed a smile. The blonde who sat next to Sakura came next. Sakura and the other fangirls all growled when she grinned and said, I'm Ino Yamanaka, the president of Sasuke-kun's fan club. And I will be Sasuke-kun's girlfriend before the end of the year. Ulrika said languidly and loudly, damn, it's just like a jungle in here full of idiotic felines. Uruka let out a sigh as Sakura and Ino shouted at the half-demon, who responded with a less forceful argument. Ulrika smiled almost malevolently, and Sandalio sighed. Enough you three, settle your differences when we test everyone's skills later today. His twins scowled but gave an unhappy nod. Ulrika, don't go wolf, and only use fire if it's low-degree heat. Ulrika said, fine, but I get to take them both on. This caused people to gasp. Uruka said, fine, but no killing or seriously injuring. He felt compelled to say that. He wasn't sure why, but based on the half-demon's now disappointed look, he was happy that he had warned her. There were moans, but both twins straightened up significantly and were prepared to learn. But that will be later today. Since Ulrika and Sandalio are new, we will go over the brief history of Konoha and we'll go the basics. The dolphin turned to the board and began writing things down, grinning to himself. Some, at least, were keen to learn. Thus, the twins were born. Both twins listened intently and took notes while others dozed off or nodded off. To put it mildly, the teacher was taken aback. No one had ever taken notes in class, not even Sakura, Sasuke, or Shino. Ulrika or Sandalio would raise their hands and wait to be called upon before pointing out something or posing a question, but others remained silent. Iruka was certain that Ulrika, a half-demon, and Naruto, a Jinchuriki, were okay. He was a little nervous about the two being in his class at first, but he realized it would be interesting to have them here. They engaged in class and debated without fear. Iruka was aware that, in order to be fair, he should place the twins on different teams when he eventually created two. Iruka began, as you all know, the fourth Hokage is one of Konoha's most remarkable heroes. He noticed the twins smiling and leaning forward intently. The two said twins blushed, though Sandalio's blush was so light that no one could see him unless you were up close, as the entire class essentially went to stare at them. He took his only son and sealed the Kyuubi within Naruto, or Sandalio as he is now called, to save Konoha. I won't go into detail about what happened after, as most of you have vague ideas so far, but I will say that I'm glad the twins are alive after all and back. Continuing on, Iruka then covered the fundamentals of ninjing. He started by saying, "We have ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu." The twins quickly scrawled notes because they were undoubtedly unfamiliar with the topics. Ulrika held up her hand as they shook their heads, asking, "Ulrika, Chan, Sandalio.kun, do you two have a basic idea of what chakra is?" Iruka gave a nod, and the girl continued talking. Iruka looked at Yukai in confusion and decided to ask what it was. Ulrika replied chirpily, "You see, Iruka, Sensei, Sandalio and I weren't taught to control chakra. However, if chakra is the same of our Yukai and human energy, then maybe we do have a blurry image of what you're saying. It's our demonic energy. Seeing as I'm half demon, then I have a balance of both Yukai and human energy. It's like yin and yang. Naruto, since he is a Jinchuriki, he is completely human. However, because of Gakido's influence, he still has to control his, Gakido's, Yukai so his inner body doesn't go haywire and cave in. If you are a human and you have demonic energy in you, it can be very dangerous and end up killing you if you're not careful. However, there have been scenes where a Jinchuriki absorbs the demon in them and eventually becomes either half or full demon. But our father's seal prevented that from happening. I ended up becoming half demon because of us living with demon wolves and their energy ended up corrupting me, as some humans say, she said. So you too will have the hardest when it comes to chakra control. Your human energy, as you put it, is your chakra. It is essential to even the most basic jutsu. It is a mixture of the physical energy present in every cell of the body and the spiritual energy gained from exercise and experience. Through various methods, the most common of which is hand seals, the chakra can be manipulated to create an effect that would not be possible otherwise, such as walking on water, exhaling fire or creating illusions. Sandalio's pupils widened. Calm on the outside, he asked, walking on water? On the inside, though, he was jubilant and grateful that he had chosen to become a ninja. Iruka grinned and thanked the gods that he had at least two students who were eager to learn. Yes, walking on water is a very hard chakra control exercise which you will learn later on in life. Now, as we have covered the basics, it is time to test your skills. For most of you, it is to see how much you have learned over the summer. For others, it is to see what abilities you do have since you are new. Ulrika smiled sadistically, prepared to spar. Iruka nodded when she called, "You remember that I get to fight both the fangirls, right, Iruka? Sensei." Ulrika smiled as she saw Kiba and the others running to catch up to them, saying, "Yes, I remember. Now, go outside to the practice area." The group blinked at their new nicknames. Hey, Pup, Muscles, Bugs, Spikes, Butterfly. How are you guys doing? Hinata blushed and dismissed the commotion. Ulrika scowled and Kiba laughed, saying, "Awesome, especially since you guys are here to liven it up. I can't believe you're going to fight both Sakura and Ino." She questioned, perplexed by her friend's response, "Why not?" The young girl and her brother both looked shocked and said, "Because they're both supposedly the best in the class, female-wise." Hinata blushed as she yelled, "You have got to be effing kidding me. I bet Hinata could take them both on, what the hell?" Ulrika could see that wasn't all, but she didn't ask any more questions. Yeah, Hinata could, but the thing is, Hinata wants to be of a medic.nin, since she doesn't like to hurt people. Even if it were her last act, she would assist Hinata in gaining confidence. She caught a glimpse of Sasuke running up next to her out of the corner of her eye, the demonic half being blinked. The group laughed when she said, Why are you stalking me?" Rolling his eyes, Sasuke gestured covertly behind him. When Ulrika turned around, she noticed a bunch of fangirls pursuing them. She gave them a glare and flipped them off, making the girls furious but preventing them from approaching. Observing bewildered looks, she clarified, "They remind me of the freaking Black Death tribe. They're a tribe of evil demonic ravens. They live in large forests and you can see their beady red eyes as they lie just beyond sight, hiding in the dark trees and bushes, waiting for their prey to drop their guard so they can kill them and eat them. As Sandalio recalled those few days, he muttered, "Nasty little tribe. Had a run-in with them not so long ago. We traveled up north and accidentally ran into their territory. Ulrika ended up holding them back with her fire. They eventually learned that it was a test to see if they could fend off an enemy tribe on their own. But just in case, Yuffie, Jesse, and Riku were following them to make sure they were safe." Sasuke said, "Oh, I see." He could swear he saw the red eyes staring back at him when he looked back. He hurried up with the group, swaying a little. Ulrika teasingly said, "Don't worry, Sasuke, we'll protect you." The Uchiha scowled. "I don't need protection." Despite this, he remained with their group. When they finally made it outside to the rear of the school, Iruka was waiting for them. Ulrika smiled as she entered the sandy court and said, "First up will be Ulrika versus Sakura and Ino, in a 2-against-1 match. No killing, maiming, or seriously injuring. Weapons are allowed." Her opponents turned to her after grinning at one another. Sakura asserted, "You can't defeat us both. We're the best in the class." Ino nodded and then withdrew kunai. "Ooh, already bringing out the trash talk and weapons. My, you two don't waste time. However, your trash talking needs some work as that was just pathetic. Exactly like you two, and those puny little knives won't touch me." The other students, oohed, and the half laughed. "Let's make it fair. I'll use half of my strength, won't use any weapons, or magic while you two can use anything you have." Ulrika shrugged and Ino said, "Fine, but you just signed your death warrant." "Whatever, Blondie." The verbal altercation made Iruka sigh. "Start." As Ulrika had promised, all of the knives missed when Ino threw them right away. Sakura hurried over to punch her, giving Ulrika the impression that she was moving slowly. Ino was too slow to dodge, so Ulrika grabbed the pinkette's fist, lifted her up, and threw her at him. Ulrika yawned as she blocked every punch and kick that the two attempted to throw at her. "Oh, come on, being the best, I thought you would put up a better fight. I'm not even using my whole strength, not even half." Even though Ulrika wasn't exerting all of her strength, she was still too quick for them. She then added, "I'm using only one arm too," which caused the two opponents to growl. Sakura yelled, "Bitch," and Ulrika tsked before Iruka could respond. Half of the class exclaimed, "Such bad language, and in school too," as they recalled Ulrika's repeated use of profanity in class. Ulrika, hoping for a better fight, sighed, "All right, I'm bored already." Ulrika was on offense during her speech, kicking the two girls because she was unable to punch them. "You two are pathetic. You can't lay a finger on me, who's holding back majorly, and I am injured. I thought the old man was doing something to weed out the weak, but I must be wrong. Otherwise you two wouldn't be in here. Here's some advice." Sakura and Ino were astounded by the girl's strength and speed. Ulrika leapt into the air, twisted her body, and gave Ino a sidekick to the head. The blonde gave up after falling. Now, turning against Sakura, she approached the pinkette and struck her adversary in the head. "You might want to actually train instead fawning over guys. In real life on the battlefield your enemy won't let you leave just because you might have a pretty face. You need to learn how to fight, but right now all you are doing is wasting mine, and everyone else's, time." Ulrika left the court, angry. She had hoped for a more engaging battle between the two, but apparently the best weren't exactly the best. Ulrika wins," Iruka said, and he approached the two moaning girls. They both moaned, "My head." Iruka checked, but the worst they experienced was a headache. When Ulrika claimed she wasn't using even half of her strength, she wasn't lying. The dolphin pondered how good her brother was and what else Ulrika knew. Ulrika took a seat back and examined each student's strengths and shortcomings before saying, "All right, we will now pair up the rest of you." Taijutsu was Hinata's strength, but she was too kind and timid to use it. She skipped her brother's fight with a random child because she already knew his. Although partner Taijutsu, ninjutsu was Kiba's strength, he relied on it. If Akamaru were taken prisoner in combat, Kiba would be unable to defend themselves, which would be problematic. Choji was fine, Sasuke was decent, Shikamaru was too lazy, Shino used his bugs excessively, and she could not give a damn about the others. Ulrika sat with her arms folded beneath a nearby tree, watching the battles. She was so absorbed in her analysis that she nearly missed the two presences approaching her. Ulrika said, "Yeah, what do you want?" without recognizing the person she was speaking to. She never looked away from the court. Ulrika's eyes snapped to the two girls by her side as she recognized the hesitant voice asking, Ulrika. Senpai?" Ulrika turned to them and sneered. The two girls recoiled when she sarcastically said, "Yeah, and what's with the sudden politeness? aren't you two gonna trash talk me some more? Sakura continued, Ulrika. Senpai, Ulrika eyed them and remained silent. Ino asked her friend, will you train us? And the half? Demon remained quiet for a while. The two girls hung their heads, assuming she would say no. The redhead sighed as the two competitors gazed at her, perplexed. What for? Why do you want to be stronger? What are your reasons? The blonde friend nodded when the pinkhead asked, what do you mean? Ulrika repeated the question. Everyone has a reason to be stronger. Some want to be recognized, or to protect those close to them. Others, though not so nice of reasons, want to be feared. Some want to be stronger so they can abuse that power to get what they want. Why do you want to be stronger? Only one person saw the trio beneath the tree. I want to be stronger because I want to survive and help others survive, said Sakura. With confidence, Ino stated, I want to help the village prosper and not bring shame to my family name. Ulrika hesitated, looking for any hint of dishonesty in their faces. Feeling rejected, the two girls turned to go when she remained silent. Sakura and Ino turned around, smiling, and bowed to Ulrika, who frowned. Come to the Namikaze mansion after school and we will think of a schedule. Your weaknesses are being distracted easily, angered easily, along with others. You two basically have no strengths, but that will change when I'm through with you two. Enough of that. We're all equals. Or, will be soon enough. I don't want no nonsense with you two, though. Meaning stop focusing on your looks and boys, and start focusing on your training. Being book smart is all well and good, but that won't help you in the battlefield, unless you're Shikamaru. The blonde said, what do you mean by that, Ulrika? Senpai. He's a genius, that's what I mean. He's lazy, yes, but he pulls through by coming up with a plan in a matter of seconds. You see that sign he makes, when you think he's not paying attention? As she nodded, I'm positive that's how he concentrates. Sure, you might not be able to do that in battle, but before a fight you always need a good plan. Shikamaru won by using the area around him, and using his opponent's strength against him. He would be a good addition to a team. Ulrika smiled broadly. She looked at her new students and shook her head, saying, everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and I see how Sarutobi Sama is using that now. We better get with the class. It seems they are wrapping up. Okay, Ulrika. Senpai. Ulrika and Sandalio winced as two voices yelled, you live here? Ulrika rubbed her ears and said, okay, if you're going to be serious about this then I'm setting down some rules. She didn't give it much thought, but she swore she could feel blood. Sakura and Ino both instantly relaxed. When they arrived in the living room, the half-demon gestured for the girls to take a seat. Sandalio had departed to go train and explain the situation to Axel. Because Sandalio was so interested in chakra control, the teacher gave him a book about it after he asked Iruka about it. Since the girls would be outside, he now descended into the underground training arena to practice alone. Now these rules are to be followed even outside of training. Rule number 1. Never shout. This is to get you used to be silent. Be thankful I'm not doing to you what the others did to me. Ulrika grumbled. To be honest, she felt that her time was being wasted, but she agreed to give everyone an opportunity to prove themselves. Ulrika nodded when Ino said, Ulrika. Senpai, why do we have to be quiet? You're loud all the time. True, but I'm allowed to be. You see, people see only what they see and hear. You thought that since I was loud that I must be brash. Instead, I use that loudness to cover up the fact that I'm watching and listening. I hide in plain sight. Which is what rule number 2 will help you do. She stopped and restarted. Ulrika saw how the two squealed and instantly stopped, recalling her first rule. Rule number 2. You are both to attack me every day, as many times as possible. However, if you do not manage to catch me by surprise then I will add to your training schedule. The day you catch me I'll give you each a reward. Collectively, they chanted, sorry, senpai. Ulrika grinned a little. The two might end up getting along after all. Rule number 3. No boy idolizing. You are not allowed to wear make-up or anything of that sort. You will not obsess with your looks. The women sighed and nodded. Ulrika nodded when Ino asked, do we still get to make our hair look nice? Rule number 4. No giving up. If you guys ask for a break, you're out of here. You guys want to train, then welcome to hell. I'm going to train you almost like my mentors train me. And they do that by putting my life in actual risk. They make me go through hell, and I get stronger. Do you understand? If you do you two still want to continue? They yelled, almost militarily, yes, Ulrika. Senpai, and Ulrika nodded. After giving them the rest of her rules, she made the two girls swear that they would abide by them. Good. Ulrika would drop them and expel them right away if they didn't. Ino exclaimed, "We understand, senpai." Sakura nodded. "Okay. Just letting you know what you got yourselves into. Now, here's the schedule. Every day after school until 8. On Saturdays you will be here at 8 in the morning until 7 in the evening. There will be a 15-minute break every few hours for rest, bathroom, and to get something to drink. During Saturday there will 2 one-hour breaks to grab something to eat. Now that that's all settled, let's start, shall we?" Sakura asked, "Right now? Already? And the half?" Demon gave her a look in return. She hurriedly added, "Tea." "That's great," Ulrika nodded. Ulrika showed them the exit door after the girls nodded and said, "All right, you two go outside." Then she turned and glared before following. Ulrika smirked and said, "Are you going to stand there all day watching us like the pedo you are?" Axel rolled his eyes. Ulrika grinned back, and the two strolled side by side to the training area. "Nope. But this is gonna be interesting," Ulrika said. As I write this, I'm listening to Poor Unfortunate Souls XD. "Ready to learn some cool moves?" Ulrika asked. "All right, Ulrika." "Senpai, what's our first task?" Ulrika crossed her arms and grinned. "Oh hell no, first you guys are gonna build up your physical strength before I actually teach you how to fight. We're gonna build up your speed, endurance, and strength starting now. I want you each to do 20 push-ups and then after that, 20 sit-ups. Then when you're finished with those I want you each to kick at the dummies 20 times using each leg, and then go to punching 20 times using each arm. After that you will run around the entire house 20 laps. You will take a break before doing it all over again, only you will be adding 5 to each set. Got it? Get started." Then, she waved goodbye and continued, occasionally saying something or just talking redhead. In order to make sure they weren't slacking, she followed them in her wolf form. If they slowed, she would run up and bite at their heels, which accelerated their pace. They finally slowed down and fell in the training area after the 20th lap. Sakura said, "We're going to die, aren't we, Ino?" She nodded, but her friend remained silent. Ulrika and Axel gave them a funny look. It was like reliving Ulrika's training for them. After 15 minutes, Ulrika flashed a tiny, savage grin. "Get your lazy asses up. Break time is over, slackers." The two girls moaned, but, after adding 5 to each set, they got up and repeated the routine. "That's what I would survive," Ulrika said. "Ulrika. Senpai, wait for us," and smiled back. Over the previous few months, Sakura and Ino had matured significantly. They were beginning to behave like true kunoichis and were stronger and faster. Ulrika shook her head when Sakura asked, "So did you hear? 2 strangers were seen walking into Konoha. They were both males. One had blue hair and the other was a brunette. The weird thing was, though, was how they were dressed and they each carried something on their arm." "Hey, do you know them, Ulrika?" "Senpai?" the pinkette inquired and Ulrika hesitated a moment. The brunette was said to have a weird accent and the brunette was said to act like a little kid, even though they are both our age. Ino continued, and Ulrika sighed. She jumped, pumping her fist in the air as her two friends exchanged glances. "I think I know them. It might be Jesse.kun and Jaden.kun. The metal discs on their arms are their weapons. It's weird, but you'll probably see them after school. They're the best," she said. "Will they attempt to be ninjas if they are our age?" Ulrika shrugged and Ino asked. "I hope not, but since we have an extra student in the class, it would make things even, but it would also create uneven teams. Yes, I wonder how the elderly man will resolve that issue," she pondered. Ulrika grinned as the two girls said, "Beats me. Let's move quickly. The fact that Sandalio didn't wake me up is unbelievable." Ulrika grumbled, "I'm going to beat him up when I see him," as her two companions laughed. "Again, oversleeping?" Sakura teased, to which the half-demon retorted. "Look, we're not running late." As they arrived at the building and made their way to Haruka's door, Ino remarked, "They opened it and discovered they were last though. You are a jerk, Sandalio. You bastard, I'm going to beat the living daylights out of you." Even though they were still having problems, Ulrika tried to lunge for her smirking brother but was stopped by Kiba, Sasuke, Hinata, Ino, and Sakura. "Okay. Everyone, please relax. Stop attempting to murder your brother, Ulrika." "I'm sorry, Sandalio, for not waking her," Haruka said. "You know she sleeps through her alarm." His tone left many wondering if this was the first time he had said it. Ulrika's left eye tickled as the Jinchuriki grinned and said, "Sorry, sis, but that's payback for the water. 5 months have passed since that incident, bastard, tch." Sasuke sat down beside Ulrika as she took her seat. "Water?" Ulrika grinned as her brother gave her the death glare in response to the Ebonette's inquisitive question. She smiled like a wolf, and Sasuke rolled his eyes. The first day of school I woke him up with a nice cold bucket of water. Why did I even ask? Of course, his friend laughed as he muttered. All right, let's begin, class. Now who can tell me? He started, but a knock on the door and the appearance of a boy interrupted him. Hey, do any of you know where Ulrika and Sandalio might be? What incarnations? The brunette asked, and then a child glomped on him. Ulrika. Jesse.Coon. Hold on a second. You should be at the house, right? Jesse's sweat dropped as Ulrika was suddenly glomped by a different boy. Jaden.Coon. And you're here. Both Sakura and Ino perspired as she pretended to be taken aback. Yes, Jaden led us astray when we attempted to locate your guys' house. We got here, and someone told us that you guys were here after hearing our names and directing us to this room. Sandalio's perspiration fell, and Jesse rubbed the back of his head. Have you guys lost? Jaden pouted as he reprimanded him, saying, and you two are the ones who come from big cities. We're not to blame. This is the first time we have been here. He stuck his tongue out and said, we were going to go to the big tower in the middle, but then we ended up getting lost. Iruka made the decision to find out what was going on before his class wasted any more time. All right, children. Iruka said, if you would like, I can ask someone to take you two to the twins' house. Jaden nodded, but Jesse shook his head. Oh, that's all right. Jaden shook his head and went pale. We can just wait here until school is out. Hey, Jesse. Remember that I have an allergy to school? Ulrika laughed as he demanded. Meanwhile, Hinata beside him giggled softly, and a certain Inuzuka was beginning to feel a little jealous of the attention Ulrika was giving the two boys. Ah, someone's getting jealous. Kiba glared at her, and she simply giggled. Yes, that's another change. Hinata isn't as shy as she used to be, but she still needs a lot of work, especially around her family. I'm just stating a fact. Kiba.Coon. The dog boy rolled his eyes as his own dog laughed at him. Kiba glared at Akamaru, who calmed down, but you could hear him snickering occasionally. While Hinata found this endearing, the dog boy found it embarrassing, and smacked his head down on the desk, mimicking a certain Nara who complained about the noise. Why must everyone make fun of me? His friends laughed as he asked in a melancholy tone. Why are you guys in Konoha at all? Jesse.Coon. Sandalio asked, breaking up the crazy conversation between the three of them. What? Yeah, well, our boss sent us. Ulrika nodded. I heard Dante was here for a short time. Yes. But eventually, for some reason, Big Brother had to go. Jaden shrugged, while Ulrika pouted. Axel knows, but he didn't tell us. Those guys are frightening, he complained, and Jesse chuckled. He reminded Jaden, you say that because you're on his bad side right now. Anyway, we'll just wait outside the building. Jaden whimpered even more. But the half. Demon grabbed her two friends and dragged them inside. See y'all later. No. If you are going to be here for a while, you should learn a little bit about this village. Jaden moaned as she smiled wolfishly. I agreed to this mission in order to avoid going to school. Oh no. There's never a break for me. Ulrika, Jesse, and Sandalio sat in the back with Sasuke and silenced Jaden. Iruka sighed and went on with his lesson. Although Jaden slept through class, it was clear that the two newcomers were interested in the history and origins of ninja. They were particularly impressive during the matches, and despite their stubbornness, Ulrika was able to intimidate them into demonstrating their skills. It was decided that Jaden would fight Ulrika and Jesse would fight Sandalio because Iruka was persuaded by the children that it was best that way. So, with smirks on their faces, Jesse and Sandalio stepped onto the sandy area, Jesse preparing his weapon, fixing it on his arm, and nodding when he was done. Over here, little buddy. I'm doing fine. You hear? I'm not being kind to you. Sandalio took a stance after nodding. Jesse. Senpai, I wouldn't have done it any other way. Iruka then started the match, saying, I won't be easy on you either. Start. Knowing by this point what to anticipate from Sandalio and outsiders who knew the twins, Iruka leapt back. All right. When Jesse moved his arm, the dull disc turned into a sharp weapon. A silver edge that appeared to be able to cut through anything appeared along the outer ridge, and the blue circle in the center of the main part glowed pulsingly. If pushed, this would create a small barrier that could deflect attacks. Sandalio grinned because he had never defeated any of the duelists due to their high-tech weapons. You have been training, Jesse. Senpai. The Jinchuriki remarked, you have a new disc, and his friend with the blue hair grinned. Sandy, you haven't seen nothing yet, aside from Jaden, Sandalio, Jesse, and Ulrika. The teacher and students gasped when they were able to open their eyes again after he grabbed a card from the center and the red button glowed a bright red that momentarily blinded everyone. What the devil? Kiba yelled, and Ulrika smirked while crossing her arms. It's the way they fight. They're from a city where dueling is the norm. However, since dueling isn't exactly known everywhere in the world, they need a style where they can defend themselves in places like ours. Thus, this style was developed by a group of duelists. Here, it all began when Jaden.kun fused with a duel spirit to prevent her from going insane. They're our age, though, astonished, Hinata said, and the half-demon shrugged. All right. Don't you know that children are capable of anything? They should have expected nothing less from Ulrika, and they sighed when she smiled at her friends. Ulrika and Jaden both laughed when they said, yeah, Yubel still acts crazy sometimes though. There was a big white animal with big wings and a blue gem horn on its forehead, which is what shocked people. Sapphire Pegasus, are you ready? Jessie asked, and Pegasus gave a nod. Jessie, always. The students gasped as he said that, and Sandalio wondered what the two were planning. All right. It's fusion time. Abruptly, another light appeared, and many were shocked when it vanished. What the devil? That was completely unexpected, Ulrika said, and Jaden chuckled. He shrugged, smiling. What can I say, it grew popular. People were staring at Jessie because he had changed from having teal blue eyes to sapphire blue ones, and he now had big, feathery wings sticking out from his back and a blue gem in the middle of his forehead. Sandalio remarked, new trick, but the changed Jessie merely grinned and remained silent. In an instant, Pegasus, Jessie lifted off the ground and flapped his wings. Sandalio snarled as he saw a huge bluish beam emerge from the dust, rolled, and then leapt to his feet, aiming a kick at the airborne Jessie, but instead of striking him, Jessie vanished and reappeared behind the now falling boy. Sandalio was about to say, what the foo, when Jessie side-kicked the blonde into a nearby tree. The audience responded with, ooh. Ulrika smiled. Don't you think this is getting interesting? As her friends rolled their eyes, she posed the question. Sandalio rubbed the place where the changed Jessie had kicked him, struggling to stand. Not bad, but allow me to demonstrate my abilities. The blonde pulled out his guns and aimed them at Jessie before firing. Jessie kept flashing in and out of view while the bullets followed him. Finally, seeing he wasn't going to hit him like that, Sandalio rushed forward, jumping in the air once again. Concentrating on his energy, he was able to stay up in the air. Jessie looked at him, surprised, but didn't say anything. Now it's fair. Sandalio smirked and rushed at the blue-haired duelist, who once again dodged. Not this time. When Sandalio deactivated his gravity seals, he became much faster. Ulrika arched an eyebrow but remained silent, almost imitating Jessie. He reached the blue net before he could dodge and delivered a series of kicks and punches before Jessie activated his shield. When he attempted the next blow, Sandalio abruptly flew back and flipped, focusing his energy on his feet so he could land on the air. Jessie. Senpai, I'm much faster now. Jessie shook his head and then pointed his finger at the blonde, but Sandalio smirked and said, sometime you won't be able to put up your shield and I'll win, finally. Sandalio tensed, confused, and eagerly awaited an attack, which came almost instantly as crystals rose from the ground and began to engulf the Jinchuriki, who fought against the multicolored blue crystals. What the hell? The crystals stopped growing as they reached his neck, and Jessie smiled as he yelled, now totally trapped. He declared, I win. Sandalio rolled his eyes. Fine, I submit. Wow, Jessie is the winner. I mean, there was cheering and applause, particularly from Ulrika and Jaden. Jessie.kun, sweet-ass match, with him. You cleaned the floor, as her brother complained and rubbed his arms and other parts, Ulrika smiled. He just said, bastard, as he stalked past their group of pals. I'm assuming you'll follow suit, Jaden.kun? Ulrika asked, and Jaden just smiled and shook his head no. No, I have some tricks of my own, Ulrika gave him a wolf-like smile in return, and Kiba began to sob waterfalls from the sidelines. She doesn't give me that kind of smile, he whimpered, and Hinata and Ino patted his back as everyone else sighed. Shikamaru began to say, troublesome, but stopped when the girls gave him a stern look. He rolled his eyes and looked at the field where Ulrika and Jaden were now standing with their backs to one another. Are you set, Jaden.kun? Ulrika remained motionless, observing Jaden closely as he appeared at ease. Ulrika asked, assuming stance, and Jaden nodded, snapping his dual disc into a weapon. Ulrika grinned wolfishly and Jaden returned the catty smile, saying, I'm not coming after you so you better just get it over with, Ulrika-chan. Alright, Jaden.kun, but you'll be sorry. She charged and attempted to punch Jaden in the face, but was startled when his eyes changed color. The left eye turned light blue, the right turned gold, and Ulrika abruptly flew back from an invisible barrier. Ulrika sat up and pouted, moaning. "What a fool," she complained, but she stood up and stretched. "Looks like this will be more fun than I anticipated." She smiled her signature smile and began to change into her half-demon form, but she remained mostly the same except for the appearance of a large maroon tail, sharpened fangs, lighter green eyes, and two burgundy canine ears that protruded from her head. Her nails sharpened but became more canine rather than feline, and her face narrowed. Many people gasped because they had never seen Ulrika in her demon or half-demon form before, and they were getting excited, especially since their top kunoichi believed she had to go all out or use half her strength. The two combatants remained silent as they continued their fight. Ulrika used her incredible speed and demonic energy to break through the barrier, flashing directly in front of Jaden, who appeared shocked but was able to put up the barrier in time when she tried to punch him. Despite his continued defensiveness and lack of movement, he was the one who was sent flying this time. Iruka watched in concern as Jaden stood up and grinned while using his red jacket to wipe blood from the side of his mouth. Perhaps he ought to call the match, but before he could, Jaden opened his eyes, and Ulrika was shocked, twitching and moaning as she fell to the ground. "You'll pay for that, bastard," she moaned and slowly stood up, but Jaden didn't give her a chance. He took advantage of her momentary vulnerability by throwing his fist forward, which resulted in a bluish glow, and repeatedly punched her. She attempted to block, and was successful on a few occasions, but the majority of the blows fell on her. "Ulrika. Chan, I thought you were going to hold me accountable," asked Jaden, and Ulrika laughed, leaping backwards. She didn't bother to reply, instead she howled. Jaden raised an eyebrow, but thought it was best to be prepared. He tensed, sensing for anything coming his way. What the hell? When shadow figures, resembling wolves with red eyes, suddenly materialized, he asked himself. Like Jaden.kun, my pets? They're long, dead wolf spirits that follow my instructions when I ask them to. The wolves were slowly approaching him, and he retreated in an attempt to put some distance between himself and them. "Magic doesn't work when these little cuties are out," she said, laughing when Jaden attempted to create a barrier but it failed to form and his mismatched eyes turned to Ulrika, who smirked. "It makes me think of duel monsters, doesn't it? Anyway, Jay, I'm winning this time." Jaden grinned as the half-demon chirped joyfully. "Magic? How about traps? Thanks for the tip on the duel monsters bit," she said, looking at him, and was taken aback when a huge tornado materialized out of nowhere, suckling all of her demons into it. "I can bring monsters to life with this power, and I assumed that traps would work similarly. Everything on the field vanishes when I pull the trap. Very clever, isn't it?" Ulrika complained as she transformed back into a human. "I give up." Jaden merely laughed as she sobbed anime tears, "And after all that training since we last met, I'm never gonna win against you. This depresses me. I'm heading to my emo corner, that's all." Jesse and Sandalio sighed as they continued their argument. "No, I apologize. Next time, I'll throw the match. Remain joyful," Jaden exclaimed as Ulrika went to her tree. "You jerk, that only makes it worse. I apologize. I apologize." In order to get everyone's attention, Iruka cleared his throat. The class watched the spectacle with wide eyes. Ulrika, their top kunoichi, admitted defeat to this loser? It was impossible, and yet here it happened. "All right, now that those conflicts are over, how are you, Ulrika?" Ulrika quickly wiped the blood from her forehead and nodded. "Yes, of course. Only a small cut." Jaden rolled his eyes as she waved it away, saying, "It will heal soon. Last time you said that you almost died from the loss of blood when Riku accidentally stabbed you too hard during practice." Jaden responded with a deadpan. "Everything is fine. Is it okay, Iruka Sensei?" she asked, pushing back a few strands of her hair to allow him to see its origin. "I believe so, but you're not permitted to do anything physically demanding for the remainder of the day. You'll have to go wash the blood off and wrap it for safety. To ensure she doesn't faint, is there someone who can accompany her?" asked Iruka to the students. Several hands shot up in the air and the sensei rolled his eyes. "Oh dear Kami. Please, Sandalio, choose someone." Ulrika sulked that she couldn't make the decision, but the dolphin disregarded her. Sandalio shrugged, not caring who went, and Ulrika laughed when Jesse extended his arm to her, which she accepted with a roll of her eyes. "Jesse, senpai." The two walked to the building so Ulrika could clean her wounds, and Jesse laughed, seeing some of the girl and boy's facial expressions. "All right, let's mow Mr. Smooth before people get jealous." "Is jealousy a common emotion in this town?" Jaden asked Sandalio, who roared with laughter. Hey, you're clueless, Jaden. Senpai, Ulrika became enraged with the two most obnoxious fangirls on the first day we arrived and challenged them to a single fight. It goes without saying that Ulrika won easily. The two later requested that she train them. The two have calmed down considerably and are now respectable fighters. Jaden blinked twice, and Sandalio chuckled at the look once more. How did Ulrika Chan get pissed off, and the Jinchuriki suppressed a chuckle before going on. As they conversed, the upcoming bouts were taking place, and everyone's focus shifted to the bouts. Sasuke Uchiha, who was and still is the target of many boys' and girls' desires, was instructed to sit next to Ulrika. Among the most obnoxious and compulsive were Sakura and Ino. I'm glad Ulrika put them straight because I would have gone crazy otherwise. Jaden's eyes widened and he looked around, and he saw that some people were giving him sly looks, as if he were their prey. Oh, you and Jesse might want to watch out as you yourselves are starting to be quite popular. Jaden's perspiration fell as he nervously scratched his left cheek with a finger. Yikes, that's kinda, no, creepy. Explain it to me. In addition to our caregivers receiving some attention, Ulrika and I were stalked to our home by our own stalkers. Vincent, Fran, Axel, and Riku were also stalked. Sandalio sighed, and his friend blinked at the word, smiling slightly, saying, it's a little annoying and unsettling. Right now, we're putting up a stalker defense to help keep the majority of them away. Jaden reiterated, creepy. Sandalio nodded, and they decided to carry on talking until they noticed Jesse and Ulrika leaving the bedroom. So, a voice said abruptly, and the two boys noticed Ino standing behind them. Are those two dating? Her eyes glistened with rumors, and Jaden started laughing. The two of them? When? It's a good one. After hearing Jaden say that, Ulrika and Jesse exchanged sly glances. Are you thinking the same thing as me? Jesse asked, and his friend smiled and nodded. Okay, get ready. The two approached the expanding group that now included all of their friends. You know what, guys? Ulrika inquired, and Jaden held up his hand. You just switched to Geico and saved a ton of money? No, this area doesn't even have cars. Damn it, now, Jesse.kun and I have something to say, Ulrika answered, going on. Jesse? Sakura and Ino squealed as Jesse grinned broadly. They knew the two were dating because they sensed it. I made the decision to date Ulrika. While the stalkers screamed in desperation, Jaden and Sandalio both gave an anime fall. What the devil? What did I think you two were? No, are you really getting this? As he shook Jesse, who laughed, Jaden yelled. No. This time, everyone fell when the redhead and brunette said it together. Thank you, Cammy. Everyone's reaction was hilarious, and Jesse laughed a little too because it was a good joke. Kiba yelled, and his crush laughed at that. Jesse removed his arm from Ulrika's waist as Ulrika kept laughing. But, Jay, it was your fault. The brunette leaned against the school building and said, you gave us the idea because you said Ulrika and I would never date. Jaden scowled at his best friend, who kept grinning. Their romantic vibes never seemed to work, and Ino and Sakura said glumly, that was evil, just evil. All right. Can we now concentrate? With his arms crossed and his foot tapping the floor, Uruka said in an obnoxious manner. The students, with the exception of Ulrika, who had to skip the exercise, chuckled uneasily before moving on to the next lesson. Hey. Hello. Isn't the test today? I'm so excited, sweetie. Whose team will I be on? I wonder. Hello. Wake up, everyone. Jesse. Kun. Jaden. Kun. Sandalio. Axel was, OMG. Preparing breakfast in the kitchen when Ulrika screamed, running down the stairs. Hi, Axel. What are you cooking? Something positive. I wager, it smells delicious. Her guardian arched an eyebrow in response to her chirp. What the devil has made you so agitated already? He asked, observing a figure moving aimlessly down the stairs, another immediately behind it, and a third moving normally. Jaden moaned, I hate you so much right now, Ulrika. Sandalio nodded, where's the coffee? Jesse simply shook his head as Axel silently gave the two children each a different cup of coffee. You two are unique, don't you think? Ulrika saw that two people were absent as he teased and his two friends protruded their tongues at him. Hey, where are Soul.kun and Maka? Chan? When it came to weekdays, Maka usually woke Soul up before her, so she asked. Axel placed pancakes on the table and said, out back, they're testing out a new move. Everyone can have two, he took 3, though. Congratulations. I'm so happy you picked up cooking skills, Axel. Jaden took 1 chocolate chip and 1 strawberry pancake. Jesse boasted 2 blueberry pancakes. Sandalio took 2 banana pancakes, and Ulrika chirped as she took 2 chocolate chip pancakes. Awesome! As the children complimented him on his cooking skills, Axel grinned. Axel heard a door open and 2 people entered, talking to each other as the children simultaneously thanked each other before starting to eat. Hey everyone! Before noticing the pancakes on the table, the figures glanced over and waved. Good morning, gentlemen. Have you ever made chocolate chip pancakes, Axel? Axel smirked as he revealed the 2 as chocolate chip. Yes. You are the greatest, Axel. Macaw exclaimed. Soul followed me as I went to sit at the table. I'm glad you learned it by heart. The redhead answered, and the small group carried on discussing a variety of topics. Come on, guys, we're going to be late. While Soul rolled his eyes, Sandalio complained about the girl's excitement. It's unbelievable that Macaw and I are expected to remain down here with you all. Even though we could be gathering souls, we must return to school. Ulrika shook her head and giggled, while Macaw rolled her hazel eyes, saying, this is not how a cool guy like me should spend his day. The reason you and Macaw were selected to stay down here and look into everything is because you're so awesome, Soul. In a more solemn tone, Ulrika added, and to solve the disappearance of Riku, Vincent, and Fran. We're not alone, so don't worry, they will soon be located. The atmosphere abruptly became gloomy after Macaw consoled the half-demon. Not exactly lifting the spirits, Sandalio added, it's been 5 months now, though. Yes, we have it. Macaw responded, stop making us sad, and the Jinchuriki shrugged his shoulders. While the Hell Wolves chose to remain in their current location, the twins and their guardians moved to Konoha 2 years ago, and it has been 5 months since they last saw or heard from their demon family or other guardians. This has caused the trio to feel very depressed, but they have made an effort to keep it to a minimum because they knew deep down that they were all still alive and their family was strong. In the 2 years, everyone has grown also. Ulrika grew taller and slimmer, almost like Axel except she was shorter than him. Her hair was shorter, styled like Anko Midarashi's except her bangs were slightly longer, who helped out with Ulrika's ninja training now and then. Since hanging out with the crazy snake mistress, she has also grown more bolder. Her shirt was a tight black tee that showed her midriff. She also wore a short white skirt, but Axel demanded that she wear black tights on underneath, much to Anko's disappointment. However, the male redhead wouldn't be dissuaded. His argument had been that the group already had Yuffie, Riku, Fran, and others showing off too much skin, they didn't need to corrupt Ulrika. The half-demon and snake mistress were both exasperated at his argument, but the 2 agreed to wait until she was older. Her shoes were high-heeled thigh boots, courtesy of her older sis Lerxine, that had kunai strapped to them. On her hands were white fingerless gloves that were outlined in black and had black X's on the back on the gloves. She had on the same style coat as before, but it was bigger to suit her taller frame. Sandalio had also grown, though he was shorter than his sister, much shorter than before, and his hair had grown longer to the nape of his neck, less spiky than before, and his bangs still fell in his eyes, but he didn't mind. His fashion sense had also changed, albeit slightly. He wore a black shirt with the red kanji for Remember Forever on the front, black jeans with several red outlined pockets, black boots with a kunai strapped to them, and black and red gloves, similar to his sister. But instead of a coat, he wore a tattered red cape, which was all that was left of Vincent, and was the only item that the search team sent to find the missing group could find. Sandalio had kept and worn the cape ever since. Jesse had also grown taller, reaching Ulrika's height, and he wore a long, sleeved white shirt with a blue vest over it, black jeans, and blue and white sneakers. Jaden also grew taller, though not as tall as Jesse and Ulrika, but taller than Sandalio. He wore a black shirt, black jeans, and a white and red jacket over his shirt, and his shoes were black tennis shoes with red laces and lines. They would have to be on the same team because Macaw and Soul were connected. You see, these 2 come from a different dimension that corresponds with the Soul Society, which is where Rukia, Toshiro, and their other dead friends come from. Soul and Macaw come from their own kind of Soul Society, but it is completely different from the other Shinigamis from the Soul Society. Their job is to protect humans and destroy all corrupt souls, and to stop Kishin from rising. The only difference is that, unlike the other Shinigamis from the Soul Society, there are witches and evil humans in place of hollows, and some people, like Soul, have the ability to transform into weapons. His full name is Soul Eater Evans, but his friends just called him Soul. He has red eyes, white hair swept to one side, and a black leather jacket, an orange t-shirt with the logo on his sweatband emblazoned on the left breast, and light brown pants. Soul wears a black hairband. Macaw wore a trench coat, a white blouse with a yellow sweater vest, a red plaid skirt, and black boots with white buckles. Her ash blonde hair was always in pigtails, though she occasionally wore it in buns or straight down, or styled for formal events. Her big olive green eyes typically conveyed the emotions she was experiencing. Macaw was fairly small. The way the two fought was surprising. When they first engaged in combat in front of a group of students, the humans were all taken aback when Soul transformed into a scythe, which Macaw used in the battle, but not as much as they would have been had they not met the twins and their strange family. "Are you all set?" Being a mother hen, Axel asked them again, and Ulrika grinned at him while letting out an impatient sigh. "Yes, Axel.ni.san, we're all set. Get over being such a mother hen." He crossed his long arms and scoffed as she teased. "Pardon me for attempting to ensure that everyone is ready." Ulrika looked up to both women and frequently referred to them as her older sisters. Kurenai and Anko were both happy to be accepted into the family but were also uncomfortable with some of the other family members. The redhead hadn't changed all that much either, aside from his newfound mothering abilities. Anko, who spent a lot of time at the mansion anyhow, had taught the Pyro how to cook and also gave him some parenting advice, admitting that the advice actually came from one of her friends, Kurenai, but she was too busy lately with missions to come as much as she wanted to. "Enjoy yourself. By the way, when you all return, I won't be here." Suddenly, the older redhead remembered. "I have another mission to Sanagakir that will last about 2 weeks." The kids turned to face him. "You swear to come back?" Ulrika asked, and Axel grinned and gave her a hug. "I swear, of course. I will never abandon you, children. I have it committed to memory. If I see the others, I'll kill them for bothering you and take them home." The entire Hellwolf tribe had vanished, leaving Axel alone among their group of guardians. Axel suspected that the darkness was rising once more, and he had discussed this with Dante while he was here, but he kept it a secret from the twins. Jesse and the others were aware, but Axel had instructed them not to tell them, saying that they would learn about it on their own terms anyhow. "Okay, you may leave. But please return soon." Ulrika gave her best friend and older brother a hug before moving aside to let Sandalio give the Pyro a hug. Why is there so much love? The twins grew on everyone, and it was impossible not to be happy around them. Anyway, someone special will be coming to take care of you guys, so behave. Axel grinned, almost sadistically, as he said this, and Ulrika bounced up and down. He loved his little siblings with all his heart, and they grew on the Pyro. They were like the siblings he never had, and he had vowed to make them happy, no matter what. "Is Anko.ne Chan here?" she inquired, but Axel pointed to the moment when everyone in the group saw and swore at once. "Shit. They're having a great time. Oh, Uruka. Sensei. I apologize for our tardiness." It became emotional because Axel.ni.san is going away for 2 weeks. Uruka was taking roll call when the group stormed into the room, and Ulrika spoke honestly. The teacher raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "Now you can all take a seat. Here are Jesse, Jaden, Ulrika, Sandalio, Macaw, and Soul. We can finally begin the exam now that our absent students have arrived." Ulrika chuckled as her favorite teacher muttered at their antics. "Uruka. Sensei, you are aware of your love for us." Macaw rolled her eyes as she spoke. "I have no idea why. They were a bit rowdy at times, or a little out of control, or disobedient and tardy, or lazy, and yes, they didn't know why, but when they heard his response, the class as a whole started to perspire." Smirking, Sasuke turned to face his friends, gasp. "So, which team are you guys interested in joining?" he inquired as Jaden and Ulrika adopted a contemplative pose, with Ulrika crossing her arms and looking down while closing her eyes, and Jaden placing his hands behind his head while gazing up at the ceiling. "As long as I'm on a team with any of my teams, it doesn't really matter." In response to his query, Ulrika said, "Kiba, Hinata, Shino, Shika, Choji, Ino, Sakura, or you guys?" Jaden nodded. "I'm MLAZYSOSUEMEH, all right, everybody graduated. Except for the cool people like Sasuke, Shino, Soul, and Shikamaru." Ulrika cheered, and her friends joined in. "Well, the pineapple." Haired Ninja and Soul cheered a little. "Is it truly shocking that we did?" Ulrika and her friend laughed together, and Soul rolled his eyes at the two as Macaw smirked and asked, "Hey everyone, what if we went out to dinner to celebrate?" Everyone in the group agreed when Jesse asked, "Where should we eat, though?" Ino started the argument, and before long, everyone was fighting over where to eat. Jaden finally put an end to the argument by stating that they went to Utopia, the only buffet in Konoha that served a wide variety of food. "All right, here we have Utopia. Jesse gave a nod, and the others followed suit. The owner obviously understood that larger groups or louder and obnoxious groups irritate and scare away other diners, so he created a section just for large party groups. When they arrived at the restaurant, the large group was led to a large table that fit together of many tables for large groups like theirs. This was in a more private section of the restaurant, so they wouldn't disturb the other diners. Hooray! Everyone sat down and waited for the waiter to arrive and take their orders, while Sol and Macaw sighed at the catchphrase. Kiba shouted this. Guys, why do I feel like we should be there right now because of something involving a forbidden scroll and two of our teachers, but we're here because everyone passed? Ulrika asked abruptly, and everyone gave him strange looks. All right, I understand that your emotions are usually correct, but that's just unrealistic. Ulrika shrugged, and Sol spoke as the others nodded. Oh well. The party then began after the food arrived. Usually, gut feelings are correct. Mizuki. Damn you. I believed you to be a noble ninja. As a kunai protruded from his back from guarding the fourth scroll, Iruka uttered those words. Well, you were mistaken. Being in this village is disgusting. Iruka frowned. It's not how it used to be. You mean the time after the Kyubi incident when the war? Hungry Council ruled Konoha and everyone was enraged. His former friend grinned when he spat at him. Exactly. Everyone is so kind now. To those two demons in particular. We ought to have killed them long ago, so screw that. Unfortunately, my small plan didn't succeed. I was aware that we ought to have simply killed them. You were responsible for that? Iruka glared as he reached behind his back and pulled out the kunai, slowly standing up with the scroll in his arms. He made a jutsu, sealing that scroll into another smaller one. Those two kids are innocent. Ulrika is a half demon, all right, but she and her friends have shown that not all demons are vile and vicious. As he prepared to throw another big kunai at Iruka, the silver-haired ninja in the tree chuckled and took it from behind his back. And here I believe that you were a sensible person, he said. Give me the scroll, and Iruka and I won't have to kill you. Iruka scowled, getting ready to fight. Not at all. The dolphin said, there's no chance you're going to get it now, because that scroll can only be opened by the Hokage. His old friend frowned. Hey, that's your opinion. Mizuki halted spinning the kunai in his right hand and said, enough playing, time for you to die. I'm fairly certain my master could figure out a way to open it. Mizuki screamed as his right arm went numb and, to make matters worse, electricity shot through his body as he threw it, causing multiple kunai to lodge themselves in his arm. All right. This place seems to be very busy tonight. This comes after I caught a few men outside the border. I wonder if there is a connection between these two incidents. Mizuki moaned as the electricity shot through his body once more. It'll just be easier if you just die, but the old man said not to kill you just yet, a mocking feminine voice said. As Mizuki fell from the branch he was on, a young woman appeared and said thoughtfully, he never said anything about you being half dead. Iruka looked up and sighed. We need to torture you for information. The woman was thin, almost delicate. Looking at first glance, wearing a hooded black cloak with a silver zipper and drawstrings on the front, black boots, and shoulder length electric blonde hair that was swept back except for two antennae, like strands swaying above her head. After all, she looked oddly familiar, like the Lerxine Ulrika always praised, and her blue-green eyes were cold as they stared at Mizuki, who was still alive. Actually, yes. Ulrika mentions me, correct? Iruka winced. He said, more like worships while Sandalio complains and calls you crazy. Her rose-colored lips began to smile slyly in amusement. Oh, does he? As white, humanoid creatures emerged, she giggled and said, Dusks, take the traitor to the Hokage. Looks like more training is in order. She winked at Iruka, who flushed, and said, I have a date with Iruka.kun, who's going to show me around town. Oh no, basically, she's just another Anko. I think I should move to a different town. Damn it. As Lerxine swayed to the dolphin and connected her right arm with his left, Iruka swore in her head. Get moving, sweetie. Show me all the crazy spots this place has to offer. Oh, correct. Well, I've heard that this club called Rhapsody is pretty crazy, but I've never been there myself. As the insane woman took hold of Iruka's hand and began tugging, he let out a cry. Well, come on, don't miss the fun. It was fortunate that Enko liked Kakashi because he would have lost his mind long ago. Like Kakashi, Iruka gulped as he realized there was another crazy woman in town. POORIRUKA. Has there been any screaming? While Ulrika brightened and Sandalio paled, Kiba asked as the group left, some rubbing their bellies. She said in a mysterious way, I sense a kindred spirit. Suddenly, a blonde woman passed by, pulling Uruka-sensei along with her, but she stopped when she saw the twins. Lerxine.nay. Chan. Jaden and Jesse laughed as they went to catch up on recent events where the headquarters was located, and Ulrika cried as she leapt to embrace her favorite sister. Sandalio attempted to hide behind Sol, who hid behind Macaw, who simply rolled her eyes. Hey, so, Larks, what are you doing here? When she glared at Jaden for the name, he laughed sheepishly. Twerp, don't call me that, he responded by sticking his tongue out when she scowled at him. The second item. Ulrika's sister gave her a puzzled look for a moment before understanding what she was requesting. Well, someone has to watch you brats, in addition to the fact that I was bored. Leader. Dude didn't want you guys to be alone while Axel was away on a mission, so they sent me. She smiled sadistically as Uruka muttered to himself. Well, it was actually a debate and others wanted to come, but I threatened them using very colorful details. Anyway, Uruka.kun here was going to show me where the hottest club was, so meet ya kiddies later. Goodbye. She gave a wave and carried on. After a moment of silence that made some jump, Hinata said abruptly, she reminds me of Anko. Sensei. Ulrika smiled and gave the peace sign. Yes, they are the coolest, aren't they? Her friends remained quiet and questioned her idol selection. Now, kids, calm down. You will now be divided into teams. We'll move on to our favorite students since nobody cares about Team 1 and so on. Sasuke, Jaden, Macaw, and Sol make up Team 7. Team 8. Ulrika, Jesse, and Kiba is out in the field, and so on. Team 10. Yes, they're using the Ino, Shika, and Cho trio once more. That seems a bit repetitive, doesn't it? Well, whatever. The speaker was abruptly cut off by a knock. Yeah. The majority of the students were anxious about the substitute, who was snarling at having to perform her teaching duties. Come the fuck in already. Hi, Lerxine. Lerxine moaned as a pleasant voice said, we were sent here as well. I practically killed leader for this mission, just get away from you all. She sighed. Damn it all to hell. Hey, please stop talking. The voice was irritated, but the speaker appeared more like a small child than anything else. I don't want to be here any more than you do, the voice said. Hey, Pipsqueak, stop it. In any case, why are you here? The oldest blonde said this before a loud shout filled the room. It's mine. Yuffie. In almost 5 seconds, Ulrika leapt over every desk and knocked the two small girls to the ground. Hey, hello. Could you please warn me the next time? I know I'm great and everything. The demonic glomp attack hurt far more than regular glomps, and Yuffie moaned. I apologize, Yuff. What are you two hotties doing here, anyway? Ulrika asked shamelessly as Yuffie smiled. Ulrika laughed and returned to her seat when Lerxine instructed her to do so. Well, we were gonna explain before someone did a demonic glomp on us. As Yuffie was about to say, Leader. Sama granted the Hokage's request to send us here. Since I am good at both illusions and medicine and Yuffie is already trained in the ancient ninja ways, he chose to send us too. Lerxine sighed at the chaos that was occurring. As some of you already know, Namine said courteously, and many guys fell in love with her right away. All right. The teams were uneven, so I suppose the old man did this. Once more. Are they unable to add correctly? Geez, just move aside and join the others in sitting when I'm done. Anyway, Sakura, Namine, and Sandalio make up Team 11. Yuffie, Hinata, and Shino make up Team 12. Many perspired at her behavior and began to converse with each other and the newcomers. You poor bastards, Lerxine said before settling into the chair behind the desk, leaning back and dozing off. One male genin said, wow, Namine is such a pretty name. Namine giggled at him, and other genins became envious and began to scream for the blonde girl's attention. Namine giggled sweetly at them once more before putting a thin finger to her mouth and shushing them. You're all sweet, really. The guys sighed and instantly glared at each other for doing so, but I have a boyfriend. At that point, the background behind Namine changed to a dark and sinister color, and a shadow appeared behind her. He wrapped Namine in his arms, and she threw her own arms around him. Suddenly, she was swept away, screaming in fear as her so-called boyfriend abducted her. No name, we'll preserve you. As Namine began to perspire, the fanboys uttered those words, seeing what they had imagined. As the guys gathered to devise a strategy to preserve their true love, she thought to herself, I hope not every guy in this strange town is like this. What do you do to them? Geez. When Yuffie saw how many boys were pathetic at falling in love with a single girl based solely on appearances, he asked in amazement and disgust. Namine gave her a worried look. I take no action. The Konoha natives didn't know who her two friends were, but if Ulrika and Sandalio trusted them, they did, too. Ulrika laughed at them and some of the others, saying, I think there's something mentally ill with the human population over here. All right, get in line for introductions. Everyone except Maka, Sol, Jesse, Jaden, and Sandalio lined up as Ulrika clapped her hands together. Sakura was the first of the Konoha natives to introduce themselves, followed by Sasuke, and then Namine and Yuffie, who shocked many with their completely different personalities. Yuffie appeared to be Mischief's reincarnate, while Namine reminded everyone of Innocence reincarnate. They also had different attire. Namine wore a pure white kimono with white sandals, but there were two slits on the back of the kimono where the shoulder blades were, and only those who knew her well understood why. She had a large right band on her right hand that held a small tattoo underneath. She had medium length blonde hair and blue eyes that gleamed with kindness. Her voice was gentle, kind, and gentle when she spoke. Yuffie had short-length ebony hair, dark purple eyes held a sparkle of mischief in them, and her clothes were very revealing clothing. A navy blue tank top and a sleeveless dark, gray vest over that. Both showed her midriff, which was skinny, yet toned from years of training. She had on very short khaki shorts, and were folded over to reveal a black interior. Over that she had a dark, gray hip pack that rested across her right hip. Where a forehead head protector usually is, over the forehead, was a navy blue bandana with white bordering lines. Also on her right arm was a white band, and on her left arm was a black cloth from below the elbow on down to partially covering her hand. Covering up for the show of skin were khaki colored knee-high boots with black socks that had white stripes at the top. The ninja was also carrying a very large shuriken that made many wonder how she even held it, let alone made it useful. She was loud and spontaneous, and immediately the natives knew the town would suddenly get a whole lot louder. Ulrika, then. How are you doing? Ulrika shrugged when Yuffie asked in a soft voice. It's been difficult, but okay. Namine nodded as she answered, but I've had training, friends, and family to help me through. Anyway, later, we will visit your home. Namine put her hands together, fingers facing each other, and smiled, causing many men to sigh. We already have a place nearby, so it won't be difficult to visit each other, she said, causing many of the girls to perspire while Yuffie laughed. Geez, Nene, you really do break a lot of hearts, she informed her friend, who sighed in embarrassment. I have no idea how or why, her ninja friend laughed when the blonde answered. Well, while we wait for our senseis, I suppose we just need to chat. However, since they officially pick us up at 12, it will likely be some time. Kiba growled as Shino's cool voice cut through the small talk. But why in the world did we have to arrive here by 6? Sandalio sighed as the Inuzuka asked. Those who knew the sadist nodded, and the Jinchuriki responded, it seems that Lerxine is quite the sadist today. Hi, Yuffie. What did Namine mean when she said that you were trained in the ancient ninja ways? Sakura called out to the tomboy, who gave her a curious look. Yuffie looked slyly at her friends and smiled. Well, ninjas don't have what you guys call it where I'm from. She went on, oh yeah, chakra, after receiving a response. Although we lack techniques, we do possess abilities and employ what we refer to as materia. Ninjas from my side are particularly skilled in thievery, assassination, and stealth. The dark side. She smiled broadly at this, adding, and, I'm fast. Thinking that was enough for now, she leaned back while balancing on her legs and placed her hands behind her head, holding the giant shuriken in her right hand. Shikamaru could tell she was the kind of person who boasted, and he was not far from the truth when he thought that Kiba and the odd ninja would make a great couple. Fuck it. We have about 3 hours left. I'm also going hungry, others silently agreed, but Ino complained. Then let's get some food and blow this joint. When Lerxine heard this, she smiled sweetly and Ulrika cheered. Everyone shuddered as the smile turned vile. No one is to leave, or they shall face certain punishment. What a bitch. Sandalio whispered, while his sister merely grinned. Every day, he picks up new vocabulary, she put her hands together and praised. Oh no, I'm going to bed. Before closing his eyes and falling asleep, he said, you all are so troublesome. Everyone's perspiration dropped at his indolence, but they soon resumed their conversations. 3 days remain in Italy. All right, everyone is gone except for us. Goddamn, where are our senseis? Macaw, who hated tardiness, yelled. I'm going to go homicidal on their asses. I don't know why, Ulrika growled. Lerxine abruptly awoke from her sleep, glanced at the time, and cursed. Gosh, I'm running late. I'm glad I don't have to go pick up my team, though. As soon as Lerxine smiled at them, Kiba and Jesse began to perspire, and Ulrika cheered. Team 8, you're my little play toys now. Congratulations. Lerxine, big sister. The aforementioned woman sighed, disappointed that not everyone on her team was afraid of her. But first, where in the world is our sensei? Macaw screamed as her teammates let out a sigh. This very moment. My. Having a company conspirator was not something I anticipated. What's your justification? Everyone recognized the silver-haired man as Kakashi. Yawning to support her claim, the blonde woman said, I overslept. Kakashi eyed and motioned for the other members of the team to follow him. Hey, jerks. Pay attention to the leader. She then drove off, forcing her students to pursue her. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Group 7. Alright, let's begin by introducing ourselves. Let me go first. My name is Kakashi Hitaki, and while I have many interests, I also have some dislikes. My dreams and hobbies are private. Sasuke glared as the silver-haired man said, Your turn, duck butt. It was obvious to everyone that the person was Sasuke Uchiha, who said, I like to be around my friends. I detest stalking fangirls. My hobbies are hanging out with my friends and thinking, and my dream is kill a certain man. In any case, Kakashi realized he'd better stop while he was still alive. Good, at least I can't call you emo now. Well, you still have that appearance. You with the Karibo shaped hair. Apparently the boy knew what a Karibo was, but Kakashi didn't. I don't have Karibo like hair. Yo, I'm Jaden Yuki, he said after a pause, adding, shut it, winged Karibo it does not. He complained, but he chose to ignore the laughter from the voices that only he could hear. Among other things, I enjoy shrimp, trading cards, hanging out with friends, skipping class, and dueling. Since homework is my eternal enemy, I detest it. Dueling and seemingly becoming a malevolent supreme king with a penchant for assuming my body are among my pastimes. And becoming the next king of games is my goal, which is actually quite significant where I'm from. He stated plainly, it's pretty much what the Hokage is in this region, which caused Soul and Macaw to chuckle at the analogy. You're not strange at all, The boys had to stop Macaw from killing their sensei after 10 minutes of yelling, restraining, and smiling before Macaw calmed down enough to speak. Next is Flatty over there, Kakashi said brightly, leaving his students to question whether he was being sarcastic. My name is Macaw Albarn, and I enjoy reading, hanging out with friends, playing basketball, despite my lack of skill, and unwinding. Men who cheat on their significant others, horny men who can't keep in their pants, perverts, and conceited sexist pigs are all things I detest. My interests include hanging out with my friends, writing poetry, solving puzzles, training, and beating up perverts. I want to be better than my mother, she said, and no one inquired further. My full name is Soul Eater Evans, but just call me Soul, okay? Soul began before Kakashi could make fun of him. In any case, I enjoy my friends and music. Among the people I dislike are those who cause harm to my friends. My interests include hanging out and playing the piano. Becoming a death scythe and outperforming the best of them is my dream. He had another, more private dream, but only people close to him were aware of it. Alright, so tomorrow you can meet me at Training Grounds 7 to take a test to determine whether or not you will be true genin. Yane, oh, and there will be terrible repercussions if you eat absolutely no breakfast. Soul scoffed as he poofed into the smoke. While Sasuke and Macaw were pondering, Jaden practically went suicidal at the prospect of going without food until lunch tomorrow. Screw that, I'm eating breakfast, he said rebelliously. I'm sorry, Jaden. Alongside Team 8. Alright, kids, you all know who I am, and I know who you are, but we might as well introduce ourselves for everyone's benefit, even though it will be a waste of time, she said, pointing to herself. I'll be first. My name is Lerxine, and I enjoy training, being with my friends, causing pain, and stalking Axel. Kun. Yes, that is quite typical. Cowards, weak people, manipulative people, weak people, and manipulative bastards are all things I detest. I enjoy inflicting pain and making other people suffer. As though there were a distinction. I hope to have read. Headed pyromaniacs who enjoy inflicting pain in the future. She finished brilliantly, and the boys shivered unconsciously from the nightmare she had just conjured up. Next up is me. I am Ulrika, a member of the Hell Wolf tribe, and I enjoy peace, pranking, information gathering, my family, friends, training, and sea salt ice cream. I absolutely hate fangirls, she said bitterly. Otherwhere in Konoha. Yash experienced that Lee, a lovable but horribly dressed man in a green spandex suit, yelled, and his equally lovable but horribly dressed minimalist responded with equal volume. Guy. Sensei, Yash, with them. Someone obviously possesses the power of youth, and they are putting it to good use. Even though no one could see them, the other two members of Team 9 moaned in shame as they practiced. They knew that everyone in Konoha could hear the two fools in front of them, and those who knew them would shudder when they recalled the terrible sunset genjutsu that was used when the two ardently hugged. Returning to Team 8. Has anybody else heard it? Kiba inquired, while the other three feigned ignorance. Anyway, I enjoy reading, playing tricks, training, and eating sea salt ice cream with Axel. I detest those who wish to start a war. She would have to be a complete demon by then, but she had a few centuries to get there. Jesse. Tag. My dream is to one day become strong enough to protect my precious people and to take over as leader of the Hell Wolf tribe when my mom steps down. You are it. She gave her friend a light arm punch, and he rolled his eyes and smiled. Ulrika winked back at him as he said, I'm Jesse and I like my friends, and he added, dueling, challenging Jaden, animals, having a good time, and living life. I'm glad they can joke about that. My dream is to become a pro dueler, and maybe a vet. He also gave Kiba a slight punch to the arm, and Kiba smiled, flashing sharp canines. I hate serious people who don't have any clue, and my hobbies include dueling, hanging out with my friends, traveling, taking care of animals, and being taken over by a duel monster who is vindictive towards Jaden. My name is Kiba. I also enjoy animals, but my favorite is the dog. Because they are the first to embrace me for who I am and not despise me because I come from the lesser clans and training. I also like my friends. I detest those who look down on others and those who like people only because of their status, such as Uchiha fangirls. We are all equal, aren't we? In any case, I enjoy training, spending time with friends, and caring for the dogs at home. He looked straight at Ulrika, who smiled at him, and said, my dream is to one day take over as the Inuzuka head, and to settle down. Ulrika had previously told him that she liked him only as a friend, but he refused to back down, and he shook his head out of his reverie when he heard a bark. This is my best friend and partner, Akamaru. Before becoming quiet, the white dog perched atop Kiba's head gave 2 more barks. All right, I'll give you the truth now that the dull nonsense is over. She abruptly vanished, leaving the trip alone. Tomorrow, meet me at our training grounds to get the real test for becoming a genin. With Team 10. Identical situation, identical sensei, Asuma. Alongside Team 11. Hello, everybody, from now on, I will be your sensei. First, let's get started with introductions. Let me go first. You can call me Kurenai Yuhi. I enjoy this village, my friends, genjutsu, training, and flowers. I don't like conceited individuals, perverts, or people who look down on others. Reading, eating dango with a friend, and making new genjutsu are some of my pastimes. The woman nodded at Sandalio and said, my dream is to be the best genjutsu master known. She had imposing red eyes and wavy, elegant ebony hair. Naruto? Jinchuriki flinched. I don't really go by that name, sensei. Kurenai nodded, obligingly, I go by Sandalio, please. Well, I like complicated things as I like to solve them. I like my friends and family, training, and ramen. He didn't really like it, actually, he loved it, he was obsessed. I also dislike arrogant people, and those who belittle others. People who pass judgment on others before getting to know them. My interests include training, making new jutsus, learning new jutsus, and solving mysteries, or even puzzles. His friends and sensei heard him whisper, my dream is to protect and serve my loved ones. Namine gave him a sorrowful smile, understanding what he meant, and Kurenai and Sakura simply stored it away to think about later. All right. She never really hung out or got to know Sandalio or Sakura, but she did know them a little. All senseis knew their students before they were assigned to them, so in all honesty, she was only interested in the blonde girl because she was introduced at the last minute and had never met her before. All right. Greetings to all of you, I'm Namine. I like drawing, peace, quiet, my friends and family, and animals. She smiled sweetly, and everyone smiled back. I detest extreme violence, but I also recognize that it's necessary to maintain global equilibrium, and I detest it when others are used or manipulated. Drawing, spending time with my boyfriend, spending time with friends and family, and simply reflecting are some of my hobbies. I hope to live long enough to witness world peace, she said calmly and courteously. While Sandalio smiled at his friend, Sakura thought only, she really is innocence incarnate. Kurenai nearly felt sorry for her because she appeared too small, frail, and innocent to do any harm, but upon closer inspection, while still listening to Sakura's words, she saw that Namine carried a great deal of regret and sadness, but with that sadness her blue eyes also portrayed a fire as strong as any strong-willed person she knew, and Kurenai realized right away that she was stronger than she appeared. All right, Sakura. She gave the girl a knowing glance, and the pink cat blushed and laughed a little. I'm glad you got out of your fangirl phase. The former fangirl said, thank you, Kurenai, sensei. All right. Come back here tomorrow at precisely 6 o'clock. The genjutsu expert said menacingly as he shimmered out of their line of sight. Then we will see if you were good enough to be genin. What on earth was meant by that? Sandalio blushed and exploded, indicating that he had spent too much time with his sister. With Team 12. Nearly completed. All right, so I'm officially in charge of you brats. I don't want you little maggots to complain, though, or you'll be properly punished. It's time for us to introduce ourselves. I'm Enko Midarashi, and I'm your new sensei, she said, essentially without needing to, because everyone, with the exception of Yuffie, knew who she was and that she was their sensei. I enjoy dancing, training, hunting, pain, and inflicting pain, she said. I detest perverts, and I will punish them severely if I come across one. In my free time, I enjoy hunting, eating dango with my friend, punishing perverts, and assisting Ibiki in the interrogation department. And killing, too. Hunting down a snake and brutally killing it is my dream, happily, she chirped. You, new girl? Next up is you. My name is Yuffie Kasaragi, and I'm from Wutai, which is also known as the White Rose. I enjoy training, pranking, stealing, and deceiving others. And my friends, too. I'm mad at my dad right now, she said, pausing before continuing, because I don't like touchy men. I'm pretty much a big pervert myself, so I don't mind flirting or even perverts. In any case, I detest people who treat others with contempt, such as fathers who make their house essentially a tourist destination, fathers who attempt to control their daughters' lives, fathers who believe they are experts, fathers who attempt to limit their freedom, haughty jerks, etc. When her team looked perplexed at the etc., she clarified, it's a long list. In any case, my hobbies include training, pranking, hanging out with my friends, finding treasure, stealing treasure, etc., another lengthy list. All right. It appears that there are problems in the father-daughter relationship. Anyway, Buggy comes next. Shino appeared irritated, but he quickly covered it up. My name is Shino Aburame, and I enjoy being with my friends, family, insects, and peace. I don't like overconfident opponents or insects getting hurt. Yuffie had to open her mouth, but no one commented on how eerie it was. My hobbies include collecting insects for my collection and reserve, and my dream is to take over as clan head one day, being known as the strongest Aburame with the most collection. Wait, hold on. Why are insects necessary? She inquired, intrigued, and his brief response, to be honest, frightened her. Kakaichu insects live inside me for my chakra, so they fight for me. The Aburame expressed disappointment that Ulrika and Sandalio's friends were so quick to pass judgment, saying, you know, that's really creepy. However, that's also pretty damn cool. She slapped him on the back, gently, but it sent him to the ground. She grimaced comically. Sorry. I've forgotten my strength. She chuckled, tripping backward but catching herself before she could do so. Enko stopped perspiring as the bug user glared at the foreign ninja, saying, okay, you guys are both weird as hell. Anyway, Hyuga, you're up. Despite blushing, Hinata nodded. My name is Hinata Hyuga, and I enjoy peace, flowers, my friends, and my younger sister. I don't like war, violence, and some of my clan members. Pressing flowers, hanging out with friends, and training with friends are some of my pastimes. Helping my cousin is my objective, but when I take over as clan leader, I hope to right the wrongs in my clan. Alright, you brats are a good bunch of maggots despite your weirdness. Come to the Forest of Death tomorrow, and I'll judge you and determine whether you tough people are who you claim to be. As she departed, leaving them stranded in the middle of the aforementioned deadly forest, she cackled. Shit, this is where that psycho left us. Bitch. When she heard a loud hiss to her left, she jumped and yelled, all right, let's get the hell out of here. Her teammates couldn't agree more, and they all coordinated their departure without realizing their sensei was silently observing them. I despise our sensei. Several genins' voices could be heard. Yuffie was all black and blue. Sandalio was twitching. Shino appeared angry. Namine had a large drop of sweat forming. Ulrika was smiling and stretching, while her teammates appeared lifeless, and so on. Team 10 was the only group that appeared fine, aside from Ulrika. Concerned for her friends, Ino said, you guys all look as if you went through hell and worse. That's it, life, I bid thee well. Yuffie moaned as she moved a little, and her body began to hurt even more right away. You don't know the half of it, Blondie. I can no longer bear this suffering. People immediately jumped her to stop her from carrying out the deed as soon as she raised her enormous shuriken. Ino's perspiration fell as she gazed at the scene, wondering if she was being serious or joking. The even more agonized ninja responded to her query as she gritted her teeth and said, "You fools, I was kidding. My sprained ribs have now turned into broken ones. Even Sephiroth wasn't this mean during training, damn it. There were a few bombs, some teammates who were killed, some torture, and many other things, but this was absolutely insane, debilitating torture. What did he do to you, and who the devil did you end up with?" When Shino twitched, Ulrika smiled inquisitively. You could hear barely contained rage in his voice as he said, "Anko Mitarashi, and you cannot imagine the horror she put us through." However, when Ulrika cheered, his twitch got worse. "Anko. Nichan is amazing," she clapped. She was obviously happy to have Lerxine as her sensei because her training methods are more enjoyable. Sakura sighed as she began to tend to the poor girl, but Yuffie moaned from the floor, "Ulrika, I love you to death and you're absolutely adorable, but not now." What was she doing? As the Pinkette flinched at the odd ninja's combat injuries, she questioned. Simply abandoning us in the midst of a forest known as the Forest of Death, followed by tigers, snakes, and insects that sought to devour us. I was actually ingested by a snake. It was enjoyable. After Shino and I rescued Hinata from the foolish clan after she was abducted after being mistaken for a tiger's cub, we had to flee because the clan turned out to be too powerful and enraged, and we had to hide. To avoid being discovered, we had to hide in Tiger Peace. Damn it all. As soon as her ribs began to hurt, Yuffie practically screamed before letting out a moan. Whoa. And you died? The response was a nod from the weary crew. By that point, Hinata had fainted, and Sandalio was flushed. Namine said empathetically, "At least you guys were able to take a shower before coming here." When she finally succumbed to temptation and collapsed to the ground, her friend responded, "Oh shut it, so what did you guys have to do?" As Ulrika considered Lerxine's test, she smiled. "Wheel. In fact, it was quite enjoyable." When she said that, her two teammates collapsed and then moaned in agony. Lerxine has us do a survival test with a 35% survival rate. This kind of survival training is what she and the organization typically employ. Although we experienced similar things, it was the first time I had ever gone through it. She paused, grinned, and then nodded. Yep. We had to avoid a number of kunai that were timed, and after avoiding them, you had to dodge roll to a wooden shield where you had to block arrows that were thrown in unknown directions unless you remained crazy still. Then, before the shield burst into flames and the enemy dummy changed into a spiky dummy of doom, Kiba learned that the hard way, and flew at you. You had to quickly throw the shield at it. There were enemies, i.e., random missile weapons being thrown at you from high tops, in the trees, and you had to jump from the tree to the water to avoid getting eaten by the creatures in the water. Then you had to jump into the trees to avoid having your feet cut off by the laser that was activated by the dummy being killed. This required you to focus your chakra on your feet and move continuously. I don't know how Lerxine managed to get a squid in freshwater, but it was the toughest and meanest creature. In any case, we had to cross the lake to the other side, where we had to battle Lerxine herself, but that was only after we had all finished the main course. As her two teammates, including Hinata, passed out, she said, "We had to do the second part together." Her smile was broad. Sol scowled at Kiba and Jesse and said, "Dude, I think you guys had the worst test." Yes, they were bad moms. Why? Everyone fell, with the exception of those who were unconscious, at this point. I don't care. What did Team 7 have to endure? Sandalio asked, and Sasuke grinned. The aforementioned boy turned his head sideways, crossed his arms, and pouted, saying, "Well, we learned Jaden isn't a very good liar." HMPH, didn't you just have to mention that? With a sly smile, Sasuke clarified for the few who were curious. We all, with the exception of Jaden, felt that it was a little strange that Kakashi had told us not to eat breakfast today since we would need the food for the training. Thus, everyone had breakfast. When Sandalio said, "I thought you said that Jaden didn't," Maka caught him. Jesse chuckled at his pouting friend. Yeah, Jaden ate breakfast, but he didn't even think of the reason why Kakashi Sensei told us not to. You're always thinking about your stomach, Jay. The aforementioned boy protruded his tongue at his friend with blue hair. I am unable to skip breakfast. The most significant meal of the day is this one. Jaden gave Ulrika a hero pose, but he soon lost it. Lunch, dinner, the between. Meal snacks, and dessert seem to be the same. Are you even awake enough to eat breakfast? The group chuckled, and Jaden appeared remorseful while his teammates scowled. Funny story about dat, Jaden remained asleep until 10 in the morning, and didn't get to the training area until 11:30. He and Kakashi arrived almost simultaneously. Soul grinned at Maka, who was aggressively tapping her foot on the ground. Bakas. A tick mark appeared on her forehead as she realized she would have to deal with this every day until she made Chunin or until she was called back to the organization or Soul Society. She growled, eyes closed, and crossed her arms while continuing to tap her foot. In any case, as a team, we essentially had to kick K-sensei's ass, and we did it without any issues. Jessie laughed, and Jaden grinned broadly. Didn't something go wrong, Jay? Yes, he used his fingers to butt rape me, Soul, and Sasuke. As her male teammates became melancholy over the recollection, Maka laughed and the brunette sobbed. Didn't he use 1,000 years of pain? Ulrika tried to contain her laughter while Sasuke, Soul, and Jaden all gave glum nods. Stupid Orochimaru. Wannabe, Sasuke snarled, bending his head sideways and crossing his arms. Well, we didn't have a bad test. Kurenai. Sensei used her genjutsu to test us. Amidst counterfeit copies, we had to locate the authentic book. I suspect it will all get more complicated from here, Sandalio said, closing his eyes to meditate. Like I said, it wasn't that hard. I concur. We need to significantly improve our training. While some moaned and others concurred, Ulrika smiled. You are crazy, don't you know that? As she said this to the half-demon, Yuffie raised her head and he smiled. Oh, my sister, I already know this, XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Kitty, kitty, kitty. Here, as Akamaru sniffed for the demon, Kiba gave a demon-like growl. Both Kiba and Akamaru had multiple facial scratches, and Jesse was shaking his head while his teammates both laughed uncontrollably. I'm going to lose my mind over that fucking cat. You fucking cat. Here, so I can use your fur to make mittens. Naturally, a hat would be preferable, but you get the idea. Ulrika, Kiba, and Akamaru were going to commit kitty-cide, also known as kitty murder. All you have to do is know how to deal with the poor woman. Jesse held up a hand as a signal for them to stay still, and they listened. The other three saw as Jesse walked a bit from them and kneeled down. Here, lil fella. I won't hurt you at all. He took some cat treats out of his jacket and shuffled them into his hand before laying them on the ground. He remained motionless for a while until the others were about to breathe again when Tora cautiously emerged from beneath some bushes, with some leaves covering her forehead. She took a careful sniff of the air, looked at the blue net, and then slowly made her way to the treats, crouching as she ate them quickly but thoroughly enjoying the flavor. Her mistress, the nasty woman, always gave her treats, but they weren't as good as the treats that the stranger gave her. She purred when her new friend began to pet her gently and leaned into the touch. Poor rrrrr. Jesse laughed as he raised the animal, and Ulrika's mouth fell open. But how? What about it, and she, and us, and then you? It was. My goodness, that was amazing. As they left the little forest, Ulrika was careful to speak quietly so as not to startle the poor creature once more. In addition to being an animal lover, Ulrika, you seem to forget that I have two crystal cat beasts in my deck that frequently show up in the real world, requiring me to care for them just like a cat would. Not exactly normal, considering that one is pink and the other is a tiger with a big horn on his forehead. They're both able to communicate, but that's all irrelevant. I know how to deal with animals, that's what matters. However, Ulrika grinned sheepishly and rubbed the back of her head, saying, Jim is a little better than I when it comes to the more wild ones like crocs, snakes, and such. Yes, I do recall now. Kiba pouted at being ignored while the two lovers flirted. Ulrika smiled at her blue-headed friend, who smiled back. You have the special touch. As she giggled, he winked and said, well, you would know Ulrika. Hold on, I don't mean to be intrusive, but what do you think she ought to know? Kiba gave Ulrika two winks, clicked his tongue, and gave him a nudge on the ribs, saying, you guys haven't. His friends looked at him with laughter. With the Inuzuka blushing even more, Jesse chuckled, no, we don't know what you're implin' lil, buddy. Ulrika threw back her head and laughed as he whispered, well, by, special touch, I presume you mean, well, you know, sex. He looked around. Kiba, you're just kidding. We understand what you meant, and no, we haven't taken any action along those lines. No, I intended to convey that Jess's hand skills are incredible when I said, magic touch. I'm referring to massages. You ought to give it a try sometime. Jesse would most likely charge you nothing the first time because you're a friend. Kiba shook his head and flushed. While his friends laughed, he blushed more and shook his head, saying, I'm, good. Will you please stop with the underlying messages? Alright, alright. The team approached the mission room after spotting Lerxine waiting by the Hokage tower. Jesse scowled as he sensed Tora's fear. I just wish we didn't have to give the poor gal to that horrid woman. Pets should not be permitted for her. The other three couldn't help but feel sorry for the poor cat. Even though they were still upset with her, it wasn't her fault that she had a terrifying mistress. When the team entered the room, they noticed a strange sight. Madame Shijimi was sneezing and had a red, puffy face. She screamed and backed away when she saw Tora. Don't let me touch my precious, I've developed a strange illness that causes me to puff out and sneeze whenever I'm around fur. Achoo, dear Hokage, is there any way to give the cat to someone who would care for my baby? She sneezed, and Tora curled up in Jess's arms in sheer terror. The poor thing would have nightmares for weeks. Sarutobi looked at Jesse, who appeared to be unsure, and raised an eyebrow. The rest of his team appeared to notice that look and chuckle. The brunette finally figured it out. Tora meowed at Jesse as she gazed at him, and his heart ached. Wah! But I can't. I already have to deal with my crystal beasts whenever they feel like coming into this dimension. I can't afford, she said. With a sigh, he released his right hand and ran it through his hair. He knew he would regret this, so he said, fine. Ulrika rushed up there and took it before Lerxine could. Well, on other news, here's a new mission for you guys. Clean out a shed for an old couple. What the hell, old man? You should really know that our teams and the other rookies can handle higher crap, right? Sarutobi breathed a sigh of relief. It's mandatory, Ulrika. Sarutobi grinned at her and growled, mandatory my ass, you want to see us suffer, don't you? Lerxine interrupted her tirade, which caused everyone in the room to start perspiring. Old men and having nothing better to do than make kids suffer, she said. At this point, Lerxine had pulled out her throwing knives and was examining them, a smirk curling on her face as she looked sideways at the perspiring Hokage. I think, for the sanitary of Konoha and the team, we can do a C-ranked mission. Kiba, Jesse, and Ulrika are more than ready for it. He grew serious and coughed, oh hey, looky here, a C-ranked mission. He coughed a little at this point, which caused the team in front of him to perspire. Okay, here's the status. A bridge builder is building a bridge in the land of Wave, but he traveled here recently for some supplies, cough. Sake. Cough cough. And wants to be escorted back as he is afraid of bandits attacking him and stealing his supplies. A door suddenly opened, and an elderly man carrying a bottle of sake entered, looking at his escorts. Anyway, I'll call the builder in now. Tazuna, you may come in. He took a gulp from the bottle and looked at them out of the corner of his eye, saying, these are him. How da hell do y'all think to protect me when hic? You just a bunch of brats. Hiccup. When a killer intent was abruptly released at him, he immediately stopped saying, and hic. What's with the blue hair? He looks like some pretty boy. For short. The blue-haired boy's girl was the source, he realized. Tazuna nodded and said, don't ever insult Jesse.kun. Do you hear me? The Ki vanished when the girl grinned. Good? Jesse had to hold back from hurling an attack at the elderly man. However, he made the decision to retrieve him later. He introduced the team, smiling at the idea. This is our sensei, Lerxine Hikari. Thank you, Ulrika. Chan, even though you didn't have to go demonic on me. Anyway, I'm Jesse Anderson. The other boy is Kiba Inazuka, and Akamaru is the dog on his head. This lovely woman right here is Ulrika of the Hell Wolf tribe. Lerxine gave Tazuna a sadistic smile as she began to perspire at the group. Perhaps, after all, they would bring him home safely. The group immediately went back to their two different houses. Anyway, we leave today so everyone packs and meet up at the southeast gate in 30. Dismiss, they said. Kiba and Akamaru went to their house after Jesse, Ulrika, and Lerxine did. Too many ends, In any case, let's all act as though 30 minutes have gone by so that we can get right to the exciting part. Lerxine asked the builder and her team, is everyone ready to go? And they all nodded. Ulrika smiled as she bounded forward, her team in the back shaking their heads. Yeah, so what are we waiting for? Let's go, she said. As his friend stuck her tongue out, Kiba teased, Ulrika, you don't know the way so I don't feel safe with you leading. She cheekily retorted, yeah, but since I'm here, no one would get bored if we do get lost. Lerxine gave the order, and her students immediately followed it. Oi, brat. Take Kiba's advice and get back here. We're going to do a basic formation. Kiba, I want you in the front, Jesse on Tazuna's left side, Ulrika on the right side, while I take the back. For a while, Ulrika was incredibly bored as they traveled in this manner. She began tossing a kunai into the air, catching it, and then repeating the process as a way to kill time. Kiba was alert but bored too, He kept his senses open and was alert for any potential adversaries. Similar to Kiba, Jesse was speaking to his crystal beasts in spirit form, which made Tazuna question whether the child was present at all because it appeared as though he was speaking to himself. Sensing that there was a problem with the mission, Lerxine remained vigilant throughout. Tazuna jumped at everything, acting suspiciously. It gave her the impression that he was being pursued by more than just bandits. She felt two presences approaching just as she was about to comment. It was a bad genjutsu that concealed them. Even though it hadn't rained in days, there was a puddle. When Ulrika made the decision to put an end to her boredom, she intended to be subtle about it and test her students' abilities in combat. When she truly dispelled the genjutsu, the half-demon jumped into the puddle, forcing the two ninja hiding in defense. OMG, it's a friggin' puddle. And even though it hasn't rained for days and it's suspicious, I'm so gonna play in IT. Translated. OMG, it's a horrible genjutsu, now I'm going to fight the two to end my boredom, finally. As her sister attacked the two demon brothers, the blonde woman sighed, Ulrika, I was hoping to use those two to test your guys' teamwork, damn it. Her response was, hey, I'm bored. Since she believed it would be foolish to expend all of her strength on the two chunin, she refrained from making any ostentatious movements. Rather, she primarily practiced taijutsu, but she also created two chakrams, such as Axel, using her fire abilities. She spun them around a little, jumped back, and smiled. She then rushed at the two brothers and made a clone, who adopted one of them, saying, and my boredom is about to go away in a single, blast. Her opponent leaned back to avoid her left chakram as she swung it at him. He retaliated by attacking with his weapon, a poisoned claw that could be detached. Ulrika had ordered her clone to mentally drive the two apart after noticing that they were using teamwork to kill their opponents, and it was working. After defending herself from the attacks with her weapons, the half-demon swiftly launched an offensive to push her opponent back. Before long, the half-demon's attacks were wearing the two brothers down. Ulrika abruptly threw off her clone and tied the two brothers, who had inadvertently backed into a tree, with ninja wire. She then posed with her legs slightly spread, her left hand on her hips, and a sideways peace sign over her right eye. All right, Lerxine. Sensei. Your turn. Boredom cleared, she said. If the redhead had a say in it, Lerxine swore she would never again allow her to watch Sailor Moon. When Lerxine began questioning the two brothers, she discovered that they were actually after Tazuna. They were conspiring with Hiku Momochi, Zabuza Momochi's protege. The news that there would be more people to fight had Ulrika excited. Can I fight Za? Lerxine growled at the girl, who gave a cute pout before waking up. No. Lerxine snarled at her sister, oh well, then Jesse.kun can. Or he can fight the Hiku dude. And Kiba and I could watch Tazuna. Damn it, she looked too much like her. Or you three can protect the old man and I can take on Zabuza, while Jesse takes on Hiku. Ulrika and Kiba both pouted, asking, what about me? Lerxine looked over at him. In this mission, you and Akamaru are actually best suited to protect Tazuna, as you guys can sniff anyone who gets near him in case they decide to blind us. Same with Ulrika, as she has heightened senses also. Jesse, however, should fight Hiku since his moves would be better suited against fighting an opponent and not guarding. However, I don't think he's had Zabuza's level quite yet. The group pondered the clarification and nodded. It made sense. She called forth a ninja dog and handed him a scroll to deliver to Sarutobi, saying, now, I'll call in Konoha Anbu to get these two back to Konoha. Meanwhile, we continue. The crew interpreted its sudden disappearance as permission to depart.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.